Hello and welcome to Six Part. Today I want to start a new series, What If Deku Was a Generational Genius? Part 1. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Izuku is standing on his apartment building's roof, where he has a garden of his own. Growing his own vegetables was less expensive because he could save money for UA and use whatever money he had for necessary supplies. Because his mother had abandoned him after growing weary of him, accusing him of making her life miserable, escaping with a jerk who had attempted to assault him on one of his benders one evening. The bastard broke the man's arm because he didn't anticipate the boy fighting back. As a result, they departed that evening and never came back. Heading for the room's edge of the building, I sighed deeply and wearily. Maybe I should listen to Kachan's words. For no one wants me around. No one would even miss me if I kill myself. I thought to myself. Perhaps 3 people who would miss me cross his mind. The horror of discovering him would only be experienced by one. Was it possible for him to harm just one person? I think to myself. The boy with green hair didn't know. He is being approached by 4 different individuals. Each of the 4 of them has had a distinct impact on his life. Ways that would make his life happier and give him the will and motivation to be a hero again. Aizawa is on her way to the Midoriya residence. Because he wants to meet the parents of his future pupils or UA students. Because he wished to judge UA's potential future students. Nezu had faith in the man's wisdom. Additionally, the man had a number of concerns regarding the boy's application. In order to allay these fears, he would spare some time during the day to visit the boy and his parents, observe the boy, and determine whether the boy would succeed in UA. As he walks down the street to the Deku's house to speak with him, a red-eyed, ash-blonde man a block away complains to himself. He was unable to communicate with him because he disappeared before the heroes could go back and yell at the loser again. Where he saw the boy walking, a man with blonde hair and a zombie-like body slowly approaches. I was aware that the dead end was an apartment complex. A long time ago, he used to go to this building. Not far away in a silver sports car, the man with raven hair whose hair is peppering slowly. He is humming along to a rock song on the radio while wearing sunglasses to protect his eyes. Up on the roof, Izuku steps back from the roof's edge. He opens his eyes slowly and looks up at the sky, observing the clouds as they slowly pass. He took off his shirt and school jacket. He was only wearing a tank top. I opened my eyes slowly. I scanned the tar-covered roof with my eyes. In the direction of the 3 wooden boxes with lids positioned on the far right side of the roof, past my spacious garden. I make my way quickly to the 3rd box. A sturdy black box secured with a padlock. I reach into my pocket, retrieve my keys, and move toward the key that is the smallest on the keyring. I crouch down, unlock the padlock, and open the lid while looking down at the tiny silver key with a distant smile on my face. The box contains a number of weapons as well as other items. My hand slowly reaches into the box and extracts a black manriki chain. With the manriki in my right hand, I slowly return to the room's edge while standing back up to my full height. With the 4 guests, the 4 of them gaze up at the apartment building's roof, where their gazes fall on a young man with curly green hair who has his eyes closed. The 2 men with raven hair dash out of the 2 cars as they abruptly stop. The man's electric blue eyes widened in horror at what he saw, and the skeleton of a man stopped dead in his tracks. A young, ash-blonde boy with vivid red eyes widened in horror as his bag slackened and dropped from his shoulder, thudding loudly to the ground. The vial slowly lifts his throat and says, "No. No, he can't do this here. Not where Auntie could find him. Why the fuck did I tell him to kill himself? It will make him ill." His eyes start to well up with tears. The young brunette leans back even further, raising his hands above his head as his left foot slowly lifts. When Yagi assumes his all-might form, his body moves on its own. He's finished the form for the day. He couldn't let a young man perish in front of him. He digs his heels into the earth beneath his feet and, without even looking at the other 2 men, he pushes himself upward into the sky toward the boy he thinks will be taking his life before him. As my supple body turns back into an aerial cartwheel, I inhale deeply, while the black manriki swoops throughout my body. As I moved across the roof in a dance that my body knew by heart, I kept my eyes closed. I hear a yell and a crash on the ground, and my eyes snap open. A powerful voice yells, "Don't do it," and causes him to pause while performing an aerial cartwheel before collapsing to the ground, completing a cross handstand without hitting his head. I roll over and land back up on my feet, my eyes snapping open in disbelief. I gaze at the man in front of him with wide eyes. I ask him, stuttering a little, All Might, what are you doing here? All Might is standing there, his own eyes wide, gazing at the boy who has a black manriki chain around his body as though it were a natural part of it. What draws the man away from his own thoughts? Two more men land directly beside him, standing on either side of him. He catches a glimpse of Eraserhead and Iron Man out of the corner of his eye. He spots an ash-blonde boy ascending the ladder across the roof. The boy's expression is one of shock and horror as he pants for air. My gaze shifts between the three heroes in front of him. I see Kacchan when I look over my right shoulder. I ask them, what are you four doing here? Because I have no idea what the devil is happening. I was just training, as I always do after getting home and tending to my garden, and nothing else. All Might raises his right hand to his mouth, coughing up blood, and smoke slowly starts to escape his body. His body reverted to the zombie-like shape Izuku had previously observed. I thought you were going to jump young Midoriya. I had come here to tell you I was sorry and I was wrong for what I had told you earlier today. I was a fool and came to ask for your forgiveness. As you proved to me earlier today, what a true hero is. He continued with a bloody cough. Aizawa turned to look at the man who had once been bigger. A man who resembles a zombie is now following him. He asks the man standing next to him, What did you do, Yagi? I sighed. I defended the man, who was now coughing, by saying, I asked if someone like myself could become a hero. A hero without a quirk. Aizawa raises an eyebrow now. He slugged the man on his right in the kisser after spinning on his heel in his direction. What the fuck, Yagi? You out of all people know the hell this boy standing before us is going through. Hell, even I myself know his pain. My quirk isn't as flashy as others. He growls at the man who is now down. Yagi, for his part, cast a shameful glance at the tar-covered roof. I know, that is why I have come to correct my wrongs. As I saw when he tried to save that boy over there from the slough monster. A spark I hadn't seen since I was his age. In his place, he said to Aizawa as he raised his grasp. He gets back up on his feet and approaches the young brunette slowly. Returning to his knees, he bowed to the boy in front of him. He slowly raised his head to gaze up into bright green eyes that were staring down at him with astonished astonishment. Please forgive this old fool. Please forgive me for my mistakes and become my successor. Someone I would be able to pass my quirk and mantle of the Keeper of Peace. I laugh a little in embarrassment and lift my left hand to the back of my head. Please All Might stand up. You do not have to bow to some quirkless nobody like myself. I replied. This prompted Iron Man to emerge, his mask sliding back into his iron suit. He observes the two people in front of him with his honey brown eyes. He gives the underground hero a nod. I give All Might a smile. As I heard the metal boot fall toward them, I said to him, Sure. I'll do it. Iron Man, I asked, glancing at the man's honey brown, slightly green eyes. Why is the number 2 hero here? As I finally realized the underground hero Eraserhead was present, I wondered. Katsuki is standing behind his friend from childhood, attempting to comprehend what the hell was happening in front of him, observing the greenette in front of the first hero and the second hero as they approach the Deku. Tony looks up at the bright green eyes and asks, You are Izuku Midoriya. I frown as I examine the hero who is now standing next to All Might and ask him, Why yes. I am Izuku Midoriya. Why do you ask? Iron Man's face slowly breaks into a gentle smile. He squats down in front of me slowly, to look me in the eye. I am here to meet my grandson for the very second time in both our lives. He said. My expression was bewildered as I gazed at him. All Might even glances at the hero beside him. Without giving it any thought, I ask, What do you mean by meeting your grandson for the second time? Who's your grandson? Katsuki and his old friend move in together. He glared at the heroes in front of him. He was trying to be protective of the boy standing next to him, but he wasn't sure why. He was suddenly overcome by something, which caused him to move and stand beside him. A tiny growl slips from his mouth. Don't tell me you are just here to give this Deku hell for what happened earlier. He lets out a growl. I frown as I turn to face Kacchan. I ask, forgetting that I made a self-promise to stop referring to him by that name, What are you doing here, Kacchan? I mean Katsuki, a name that always makes him angry with me. When the greenette addresses the boy by name and stops using the nickname, everyone notices a slight flinch. Why did he call me Katsuki hurt me? He asks himself. It will have to wait until he can express regret to the nerd for the hurt he caused to his shoulder and for what he said to him earlier. When he sees the palm burn mark on his right shoulder, he grimaced a little. With his head hung low and his ash-blonde bangs shadowing his face, he tells the greenette, I am here to tell you sorry for what I had told you earlier. I really didn't mean it. It just came out. I was being a true bastard to you. What I told you today and what I have been doing and telling you for so long. It makes me seem more like a villain and not the hero I wish and claim to be. I allowed everything to go to my head. The praise the teachers and everyone gives. Even the encouragement from the teaching staff to make your life a living hell. To just make you quit school or to even off yourself. I had the principal come to me this morning asking me to suggest that you're just off yourself. If you did do it, he would reward me. I was a fucking fool. I guess I was just in the moment of being the school golden boy. That I didn't think before I spoke. When I saw you standing at the edge of the roof with your right foot hanging over the edge. Something inside of me broke. I broke. If you had jumped, I wouldn't have been able to face your mom or my parents. I would have had myself placed in a mental hospital and made sure I was charged with your death. Then Katsuki began to cry. He started crying uncontrollably. Izuku had never seen him in such a mess. After hearing what the boy had just said, the three men exchanged glances. Aizawa held his cell phone without blinking, making a call that is absolutely necessary right now. Tony turns to face Aizawa. I have a recording of what the boy said about the school's personnel and what he was instructed to do by the man assigned to ensure the safety of every student there. Hello, Nezu, says Aizawa, nodding his head. I need your assistance. Aizawa-kun, what would that be? Nezu on the other end of the line asks. Aldera Jr., it is necessary to clean out high. Because the school is staffed by the quirkiest people. One of the students was being bullied by the principal, who suggested that the student commit suicide. Aizawa scowled as he spoke the words, which tasted bitter on his tongue, because he doesn't have a quirk and in their eyes he is just a waste of space. With his paw balled into a fist, Nezu narrows his eyes and looks at the few people in his office, where he had the call on speaker. Well, we shall be handing that within the day. I get it. What should I do with the victim and the bully, the two students? Aizawa asks. Bring them to the United Arab Emirates. Hound Dog will be on standby. As present Mike tugs on the leash that hangs from the man's collar to get what he needs to rein in, Nezu nods his head to the growling Hound Dog and says, because I want him to have a talk with the two of them and see what we can do to aid them both in their mental health. Knowing that the call was over, Aizawa said, will do. The demon overlord rat was going to make some people's lives a living hell and show everyone that he isn't one to cross in any way at all. One never leaves this without feeling scared in one way or another. Aldera Jr., he says, looking up at the two teenage boys with wide eyes. In the morning, I won't be open. With a sly smile on his face, he said, so we will be making arrangements for you two not to fall behind in your education. If he smiled, he might frighten the two boys because he had previously been told that children were afraid of his smile. Uncertain of what to make of this, the two simply nod their heads stupidly in agreement with the pro-underground hero's statements. Once this was all over, Katsuki knew he would have to tell his mother, father, and auntie the truth about what he had been doing to Izuku. He needed to get rid of this burdensome burden that had been weighing him down for some time. His crimson eyes gaze at the green eyes, and all he could do was nod his head in agreement with what he had just been told. I need to talk to your mom, he tells Izuku, frowning. As the heroes in front of me focus on my body language, I find what Katsuki just said unsettling. That is going to be a little hard to do. I replied. What are you saying? My daughter isn't here, Iron Man asks, squinting at his grandson. He asks, now feeling uneasy about what the boy said. I scowled again as I looked down at my left hand, which is holding my manriki, and I tightened my hold on the chain next to the weight. I looked back up into everyone's eyes and said, Mom left me one day when I was 8 years old. She started dating a man she met at the bar. The loser turns out to be a villain. I believe his name is Drunk Lee, I said, averting my gaze from everyone as one tear trickled down my cheek. The day she had abandoned me was the day I broke his arm after he attacked me after I got home from school. I just got in his way, and he didn't like it, in order to keep my mother confined and prevent her from acting foolishly like he does. Because my mother has adopted a lifestyle that would hinder my ability to become a hero, due to her self-centered behavior. I look away from the others as they comprehend what I am saying. So, how have you managed to live alone for so long? Mom had just spoken to her about a month ago on the phone, Katsuki asks, his voice laced with shock as he tries to process this new information. Still trying to process everything, he told them, the old hag is going to murder her now. She told Mom you were doing well and looking forward to trying out for UA. Hell, she will pursue that bastard as well. His last words were, as no one lays a finger on her little cinnamon roll. He took out his cell phone to text his mother about what he had just learned and that he needed to talk to her and his father about his embarrassing personality, which he needed help with. Bakugo family. As she steps away from the stove, Mitsuki hears her phone ring. She looks at a picture of her explosive son and wonders where the hell he has been, since he is already running late. She enters her code and taps the text message notifications, and her eyes enlarge upon seeing her son's text. Kitsuki-chan. Mom, I just learned that Auntie Inko left Izuku 7 years ago. According to him, she simply left him with a jerk and let him be attacked by him. I also need to discuss this with you and Dad. She lets out a furious cry as she hurls her phone into the living room, striking her husband on the side of the head. It hurt. Mitsuki, what the devil? Why did you just give me a side of the head brain? Questions Masaru as he picks up his wife's phone to see what had pissed her off royally. There are very few things that are able to set her off this bad, and he prays whatever he sees isn't as bad as he believes it will be. Looking down at the open text message that their son had sent his wife. An explosion escapes his body from the rage he is feeling at this very moment. Do you have her phone number? He looks at his furious wife and demands. No, the number is restricted when she calls me. Where the fucking bitch is, I have no idea. After shutting off the stove and setting the food aside, hisses Mitsuki, with tears of rage streaming down her cheeks, walked to the front door so she could finish preparing dinner after she had Izuku safely inside her house and in her arms. Without missing a beat, Masaru gets up and follows his wife as she grabs his car keys and shoes. He knows that his wife is in no condition to drive, so when she approaches his car and the light flashes to show that the doors are now unlocked, she gets in and glares at her husband, who is now running towards the car, because he didn't need her to blow up on him too. Returning to the roof. Well, shit, she just lost it, Katsuki remarked as they all heard a feral animal's scream reverberate throughout the town. Shortly afterward, they heard an explosion emanating from the same spot. It also appears Dad just saw the text, Katsuki added. Not prepared to handle the shit show that will be happening soon, he said, leaning his head back and gazing up at the sky while moving his right hand to the bridge of his nose. Be ready as they are on their way here. I frowned and said, that isn't good. I want to know how you've been living alone for the last 7 years without anyone knowing what happened. Yagi frowns as he asks this question. Well, after Mom left, I received a debit card in my name in the mail from someone claiming to be my grandfather, who has been paying the rent and other expenses. I have some cash here for myself. Because he is aware that his daughter's unsuccessful husband is not paying child support. A week or so later, after they had left, a man named Shizo Makaguro appeared inside the apartment when I had returned home from school. I pause there and take a deep, trembling breath in an attempt to calm myself for what I will be telling them next. He was simply watching television while holding a Coke. He seemed to be waiting for someone to arrive. I questioned him about his presence in my home. He told me he was searching for Drunk Lee after giving me a quick glance. I informed them, because the bastard is on his bad side and will be gutting him. Rewind. 8-year-old Izuku Midoriya unlocks the front door of his tiny apartment, which he now lives in alone, after his mother abruptly left him without saying anything. Fearful of telling anyone that she was gone, he continued to pretend that his mother was still there, working odd shifts at the hospital and sleeping in the staff quarters most of the time because they have been extremely short-staffed. When she has a little extra time, she comes home to check on him and prepares meals for him to warm up after school. As the loser his mother is dating pretty much ate everything in the house except for a few items for the person he called the brat to eat. He lets out another sigh and wonders what he will be able to make for dinner because there isn't much left for him. He takes his keys out of his pocket and unlocks the front door, pausing as soon as he enters the house because it smells clean, something is cooking, and the television is on. A broad smile spreads across the young boy's face. He had assumed that his mother had come back to him because she had grown weary of the loser she was seeing. Instead, he was greeted by a man with black hair up in dreadlocks and crimson eyes who was staring at the young child standing in the apartment doorway. Who are you? Izuku asks in a slightly frightened tone, not wanting to give the strange man any reason to be afraid because he doesn't know who he is, whether his mother sent him to watch over him, or even if he is her new boyfriend. My name is Akaguro, the man says with a long, exhausting sigh. He cocked his head to the right and said, I am searching for a bastard named Drunk Lee. Oh, well, he's not present. With tears slowly starting to form in his eyes, Izuku said, he took my mom with him and left me here all alone. I am sorry to hear that, kid, Akaguro said, putting his coke on the coffee table and getting up to fix his All Might t-shirt while his baggy acid-wash jeans swayed. I am sorry to hear that, kid, he said, pulling the young boy into his arms. Are there any relatives you could stay with? He asks the young boy he is now holding in his arms. No. Mommy was the only person I had, Izuku says, choking back another sob as his tears wet the man's right shoulder. When Daddy realized I had no quirks, he fled to America. He uttered these words between sobs and hiccups. He was worthless and couldn't stand being around me or Mommy because she was worthless giving him a thing as a child. As he recalled what happened to kids like the youngster in his arms during his time in that dysfunctional place, Akaguro's eyes widened upon learning that the child's father had called him and that his mother had abandoned him. He also learned that the child is unique and that if he were placed in an orphanage, he would not receive any care at all. How about we take this action? Every few days, I'll stop by and provide you with simple meals and food. When I believe you are old enough, all you need to do is take them out of the freezer. I'll teach you how to prepare meals. There will be occasions when I am unable to visit you. Because I'm going on a mission, Akaguro said, grinning as he glanced down at the hopeful, bright green eyes staring up at him. For the first time in his brief life, Izuku made a hopeful statement. All right, Mr. Akaguro. You don't have to address me as Mr. Call me Akaguro, please. Since I discovered this place in ruins and saw pictures of you on the walls, I am also cooking dinner. I wanted to make sure you had a meal. I decided to clean this place myself as well. Akaguro frowned as he said, it appeared that someone was attempting to clean but was unable to finish. Yes, this morning, I made an effort to tidy up. Izuku sniffled as she said, before I had to get ready for school, I had cleaned a few dishes and thrown out the trash. All right, Izu-chan. Do not be concerned. Akaguro grinned and said, tell me, Izu, what you want to be when you grow up. I'll teach you everything you'll need to know. I had seen your room, after all. With a few homemade-looking Eraserhead items and some Iron Man items, it has All Might all over it, he said, grinning again. I want to grow up and be a hero like All Might. Izuku said with a big smile before scowling, could I be a hero without any quirk? He asked, glancing at the man in front of him. Akaguro smiles at the boy and says, yes, of course. I'll start teaching you how to fight and use weapons if you want to be a hero like All Might, if you require anything additional for your training. He smiled and said, I'll make sure you get it. The flashback has ended, so you've been trained for the past 7 years by Phantom Stain, the former vigilante who became an underground hero. He asks All Might in a startled tone. Aizawa's eyes widened at this point. Now that makes sense. With a startled look on his face, Stain appeared at a friend of mine's underground hero agency approximately 7 years ago, seeking assistance in obtaining his hero license. He kept saying that he needed to prove to someone that anyone could be a hero and would become one for them. Yes, he told me that he wanted to demonstrate to me the abilities of a real hero. He was determined not to be one of those phonies. He wanted me to understand that being a hero is more than just posing for pictures and getting favors from powerful people. I glared at All Might for a moment at the last statement, saying, I need to grow up to be a hero like All Might who fights for the little guy and doesn't turn his back on anyone. Young Midoriya, I sincerely apologize. I was being stupid by only considering myself and not caring if I had offended anyone. I was being the quirkiest, even though I had been the face of quirkless for years. With his head drooping once more, Yagi said, shutting down your dreams at being a hero when I should have stepped up like Stain and proved to you that anyone can be a hero no matter what. He was ashamed of the ridicule he had caused himself and everyone else by his stupidity. A voice behind the three heroes said, well, at least you know you have done wrong and now are trying to amend for your actions by taking on my student. Katsuki watched the man in terror, blood streaming down his right shoulder. The heads of the three heroes turned back to face the man in front of them. Uncle Akaguro, how did you fare? As I sidestep All Might, I ask in a worried tone, and suddenly I find myself standing in front of the man who has become my uncle. He laughed and said, Don't worry, Izu. I'm doing fine. The wound is already healed. All I have to do is rinse it off. I came to see how you were doing. He smiled savagely as he said, I visited some assholes after hearing what had happened to you, and I gave them a piece of my mind and a kunai that nearly went up each of their asses. Well, shit. With a look of fear on his face and body, Katsuki said, I don't want to square up against you. Boy, I've been wanting to come visit you and give you a tongue lashing, Akaguro says, turning to face the spiky ash blonde. His eyes somehow start to glow a soft crimson, and a dark, menacing smile appears on his lips, or simply a slap. Every time I see him return home burned or injured by your hands, Izu stops me. He growls as his teeth appear to have sharpened into fangs in his mouth. I told him that you are not on the path to becoming a hero but a motherfucking villain. Katsuki collapses onto his ass on wobbly legs. I apologize. I've apologized to Izuku, and if I don't change right away, I know I need to get help for being a bastard. I'll turn into a villain. Since I don't believe UA would permit me to act in this manner. His words were filled with fear. With his arms folded across his chest and his gaze shifting to the other people on the roof with them, Stain smirks at the blonde who was about to urinate his pants. Go, he said, returning his attention to Izu. Since then Izu has been taking odd jobs for anything extra he wants as well as using the money he has gotten from his mystery grandfather. Well, I've been putting money aside as well. Because I'm not sure what I'll need for the UA. I also need to upgrade my tools and weaponry for my hero outfits. With a sheepish grin, I acknowledged that I had already submitted the request forms to use my support items for the exams battle section. Akaguro grinned and said, that's correct. We must increase the Manriki's weight. In addition, you should get a new Scorpio chain dart and upgrade your chain whip. Due to excessive use, those two have become somewhat worn out, he remarked thoughtfully. Oh, Uncle Akaguro. As we heard a roaring engine turn into the apartment building's parking lot, I said, Auntie Mitsuki and Uncle Masaru are on their way here. They are now here. I said sheepishly, looking at the black car carrying two irate people. Also Auntie Mitsuki is a little explosive. I added, rubbing my right hand against my neck. We need to get down from here before she knocks this building down to get to Izuku and myself. Katsuki sighed and shook his head. They simply exchange glances before making their way to the unobserved stairway that descends from the roof. Each of them had discovered a different route up to the roof in order to prevent the greenette from injuring himself while he was simply exercising and had ignored all the negative thoughts that had been bothering him for the previous few months. Masaru is hot on her heels, with flames licking his body and tiny drops of sweat falling to the ground as explosions hit the ground, burning the ground beneath her feet. Mitsuki hurried up the stairs to the top floor, to the final door next to the stairway leading towards the roof. Move your fucking ass, Masaru. I have to get to my boys. She growls at her husband, I have to get to both my little caramel drop and my little bunny. Masaru, who was huffing and puffing from all the running, said, I'm right behind you dear. He was aware that he needed to get himself back in shape because he couldn't keep up with his explosive wife and son, and he didn't like looking at their backs because he felt like he would never catch up with them and would be left behind without ever seeing them again. Shaking his head from his own darkening thoughts, he sighs out in relief at seeing his two sons. He had always thought of Izuku as his son because the boy had a difficult life and needed a father figure after his own father abandoned him for his new life in America. The last he heard was that the man had started a new family, one that he wasn't ashamed to boast about to his friends back in Japan. She stops dead in her tracks when she sees the young man she's known since birth. Her eyes well up with tears, which she can't stop from spilling and which leave wide trails of tears down her cheeks. Her eyes are bright crimson, and the red swelling around them makes them even more brilliant. Oh my little bunny, why didn't you approach me? Why hadn't you reported the incident to Katsuki? Between sobbing and sniffling, she asks, her left hand around her back and her right hand in his hair, clinging to him like a lifeline. I apologize, Auntie, I say, putting my arms around her and resting my forehead on her right shoulder. I am aware that I ought to have approached you. I didn't want to burden you with my personal issues any further. I was in control of everything. I wasn't by myself with Auntie either. Uncle Akager was with me. I tell her, trying to stop her tears and the anger that is building inside of her, he had been with me shortly after Mom had left. Holding the boy in her arms back a little so she could meet his eyes, Mitsuki's head snaps up. Uncle Akager, she asks the boy who was now in front of her. I sidestep her and point to the man with raven deadlocks defying gravity, grinning sheepishly. Yeah. As he approaches Izu and rests his left hand on the boy's right shoulder, Akagir said, "Hello." He was smiling, which gave him an unsettling appearance. "I have been taking care of him for a while now," he said. "In addition, I made sure he had someone to confide in when he was feeling lonely, even though I hadn't been there every day." He grinned softly once more and said, "I had work to do to make sure he didn't go without." As she tightens it up, Mitsuki's jaw drops a little. "Well, you should have made him come to me." She growls at the man beside her nephew. "I understand, as if he had just told you." With a frown now on his face, Akagir said, "He didn't want to worry you about his own problems and bother you because you've had some health issues." "I know," Mitsuki says, turning his head away from the two of them. She was unable to look up at anyone above her, so she whispered, "I would have found a way to take care of him." I put my hand on her left shoulder and smile at her, saying, "Auntie, please don't worry." I smiled gently and said, "I'm just glad you're doing well now." Everyone turns to face the greenette as a beep is heard. "What was that?" Tony asks, his face slightly frowning as he turns to face his grandson. Since only one person in the room is aware of what is happening and what the sound was, I laugh a little nervously at those around me. Akagiro sighed again and said, "It looks like it's time to head to work." I took an odd object out of my pants pocket, which appeared to be a cell phone. When I pressed a button on the side of the phone, it shifted and slid open, revealing a hologram and a dark screen that read, "Shadow, I'll be at the meeting location within an hour. Please confirm that you have all the information I asked for." I let out a sigh and began tapping back to the message with the hologram keyboard that had appeared before him. "Yeah, Dango, I have what you asked for." I respond to the man on the other end of this text, saying, "Everything you have asked of the villain is spot on. Who should you have told you about taking him down or even giving this information to a pro that would work better for this task?" Another text message shows up on the screen along with another beep. "I got it. I must do this." I can feel the rage radiating from the text the man sent Dango, who responds, "I'll see who will team up with me." "All right, just have the sum that we decided upon. I will make your life miserable if you attempt to deceive me once more, Dango." I reply to him, smirking, "You know I will keep my promise." I know he wouldn't try anything again because of what happened the last time. I press another button on the side of my phone, and it closes as I put it back in my pocket. "What the devil was that for?" Katsuki glares at the greenette and demands. "Huh," I question looking at everyone with eyes. "Aw shit, I had forgotten who was all around me before I just mindlessly answered that message." I thought to myself before I answered Kachin and the others' questions. I look up at Kachin. "Well, that is my part-time job." "Well, one of them," I remarked, grinning because his friend enemy wouldn't ruin his evening. Everyone gives him a wide-eyed stare. "So, Shadow, you are the information broker?" Tony asks as he moves in the direction of his grandson. In order to get a better look at my grandfather, I now tilt my head to the right. "Yes, keep this from getting out. Because if it came out, it wouldn't be good for me." I looked at the older hero in front of me and said, "As I have a lot of villains and several pros after me, I wouldn't mention this at all. The others here, as far as I know, would remain silent. I think nobody would even want to deal with my attorneys. Not even UA's fucking Chimera ruler. Messes with me," Tony smirked and said. I nod curtly to my grandfather while glancing at the people around me. Kachin caught my attention because I need his approval because if he doesn't, things won't work out and he might lose it in one of his angry outbursts. "Well, Kachin, are you not going to share this?" As my gaze hardens on his own eyes, I ask. "TCH, whoever loses." When Katsuki hears the boy in front of him refer to him by his old childhood nickname, he growls out, a faint smirk appearing on his face. "Who would even believe me if I say something?" "Well, if you give me about 2 hours to take care of my job," I say, glancing at everyone. "When I get back from my job, I'll try my best to explain everything." I tell them, "I know you all might have a few more questions for me," as I walk away from my aunt and turn the unlocked knob on my apartment door before entering the tidy and peaceful space. I never let my phone leave my person because I didn't want them to tamper with it, and the others follow me as I take my house keys out of my pants pocket and place them on the table by the door. Tony's armor disappears into the bracelets and ankle cuffs he has concealed beneath his clothes. Since the armor he is wearing is lighter, he can use it until his other armor arrives, so he won't be helpless against a villain or anything. He enters the small apartment, which he has been paying for the past 14 or 15 years, and looks around before approaching his grandson and putting his hand on Izuku's shoulder, which causes the younger to turn back to face him. Not far from them, Yagi's skin turns white as his hands tighten around the golden frame the picture rests in, his hands trembling a little, and his eyes are fixed on a picture of himself as a child standing next to a much younger brunette woman who shares her son's eyes and hair color. Seeing the frame in the man's big hands, Aziawa approaches the blonde, wondering what has him in a state of shock. "What scared you so much, Yagi?" he asks his obnoxious friend. "I regret listening to your mother's statement that she didn't want me around. About how I was disliked by her loser husband." Tony looked away toward the kitchen window and then back down at his grandson, saying, "He didn't leave because you didn't have a quirk. Because I wouldn't hand over my company and wealth to his greedy hands. After learning that you are not his son, he departed." He said, "It's claimed that your mother had an affair with one of her friends." His now wide green eyes were fixed on his own. "What?" I asked the man, who had a sad expression on his face. "I apologize," Tony says, putting his hand on the boy's shoulder. "I am aware of your father's identity. If I ever mentioned it to your stepfather, he would kill you." He shook his head at the mere thought of the bastard, saying, "I swear that the bastard is a villain playing hero." Tony, not missing this, made eye contact with the man's blazing electric blue eyes as Yagi nodded to him, knowing that now was not the right moment. Perhaps after Izuku had left to attend to his job with Dango, they could discuss what the man knows about the father of the boy standing next to him. "Well, this is really illuminating. I never go into this alone, so I need to take a shower and change before I meet up with my partner," I said. "Hailstone will be waiting for me," as I ducked away from them and went to my room to get my clothes and towel. Katsuki looked in the direction of Izuku's disappearance and proceeded to the boy's room, placing his hand on the doorknob, unsure of whether he should be doing this or not. He needed to know what his childhood friend, his brother in all but blood, had been doing to make ends meet, and he wasn't too shocked to see that Stain was still living with him, but he was more agitated because his own aunt no longer deserved to be called that. "Bitch" is a more appropriate title for her, given that she had abandoned him. Was it because he was quirkless, or because he wasn't the son of the jerk she had married? Was he a waste of space in her eyes? "Will you go inside with me or will you just stand there all day?" I ask him with a playful smirk on my face, so I am able to finish getting ready for my job. I am not standing to my full height, and I have noticed that I am slightly taller than him, which is a little shocking, especially considering all the training I have been doing for years. "Yes." With a faint smirk on his face, Katsuki turned around and opened the door to the bedroom he hadn't seen since he was 4 years old. "I want to see how you dress for these jobs of yours," he said. I nod my head as I approach my dresser, where I have a keypad on my top drawer. I should have hidden this better. Like how I have all my files hidden, along with my work computer, I think to myself as I shake my head and punch in the pin so quickly that not even Katsuki could catch it. I am now wearing black cargo pants, black socks, and a black tank top. As he approaches the computer chair to take a seat, Katsuki raises his right eyebrow and asks the brunette, "What are you doing?" He asks, unsure if he would want to know the response. I smile broadly as I pull open the drawer and say to him, "I am getting my weapons, voice-altering mask, as well as some other items from here." Weapons. Not sure whether he wants to let Deku go meet up with Hailstorm to go meet up with some underground loser, Katsuki asks. "I'm not going to go unarmed," I say, rolling my eyes at him. "Because Dango has previously attempted to attack in order to escape paying me." That didn't make him happy. He nearly lost his hero license because I had also cleaned out his bank account. As I watch his eyes widen in disbelief, I tell him, if he ever tries to cross me again, it will be 100 times worse. Katsuki leaps to his feet and demands, "I am going with you." I sigh and say, "If I don't let you, I have a hunch that you will always follow me." I turn to face him and ask him a question. He smiles at me, pretty much, and I also know if I tell the others this tidbit they will not allow you to leave this place at all. He says to me. With a long sigh, I tell him, "Fine." I open my dresser's third drawer and take out a pair of black cargo pants, then move on to the second and take out a black tank top. "Here, go take a shower," I say, not liking the sensation of being blackmailed. "Use the white bottle of soap." Do it or you're not going and I will slip out of this window before you're even able to get to the others, I told him, cocking my brow as he looked at me. It negates all sense. I smirked at him. Fine. Grounds out Katsuki as he heads into the bathroom to take a shower and get ready, turning on his heels with a sigh. The others in the living room hadn't missed this. Mitsuki grinned and said, "It looks like the brat is going with Izu. Are you certain that letting him accompany Izuku is a good idea?" Yagi asks with concern on his face. Mitsuki grinned and waved her hand, saying, "It's okay. For years, Katsuki has been using Katart. Because it would be beneficial for him to see what awaits him after he becomes a hero." She informs the others, letting him see that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. With a small smile on his face, Aziawa said, "That is a way to put it." Katsuki eventually makes his way back to Izuku's room. All right, what comes next? He tosses his clothes in the direction of his backpack and asks. Izuku studies for a moment before heading to his closet and opening it. Inside is a plastic storage stand with labeled plastic drawers. He opens two of them and takes out a few items before opening the bottom and taking out 2 pairs of plastic gloves. Katsuki raises an eyebrow in perplexity at the current situation. "What are you doing?" he asks. I smirked and turned to face him. "We are not going in looking like ourselves," I said, passing him a silver tin of silver Adarl hair wax, which he should apply to his hair. "To evenly comb through your hair, use this comb. I think black contacts will look good on you," I tell him, laughing, "and you are going to wear these contacts. You might want to wear these gloves as you don't want to stain your hands." I laugh and tell him, "Making you look like the little demon you can be." As he removes the objects from the jackass in front of him, Katsuki lets out a growl. "All right," he growls, "I'll put these in first because I don't want to deal with it after I put this crap into my hair." He quickly inserts the contacts and blinks multiple times while receiving eye drops. "Thanks," he complains. I grab the black hair wax and black contacts, inserting the contacts and putting a few drops of eye drops in my eyes. I then picked up my own gloves and put them on easily, dipping my fingers into the hair wax and running them into my short curly hair and buzz cut sizes. I didn't realize Katsuki was watching me as I did this, but she was following my instructions. I picked up my comb and started combing my hair, making sure it went through it evenly, and then I combed it back into spikes, where Katsuki. I grin as I turn to face Katsuki. "All right, you can pick from a variety of face masks that I have." "Because we only display our eyes," I informed him. He tilts his head sideways and gives the boy an odd look. "All right, you seem to make sure to cover everything," Katsuki said, wearing a faint frown. "I think so. As I mentioned," I told him, laughing, "I have a lot of people after my fucking ass." "Deku, whatever, the masks are where?" Katsuki grins as he makes the demand. "All right, this desk over here, I own the black skull mask," I tell him, grinning. "You have the black crimson demon mask, black silver skull mask, finally the black crimson skull mask." He returns to the closet and takes out 2 black hoodies and some leather gloves that are sitting in another random drawer in the plastic storage thing. "Here, wear these." I give him the hoodie and gloves. "Oh, are you a size 8.5 in boots?" I ask, staring at him a little perplexed. "Yes, why?" asks Katsuki, who is now a little perplexed by the query. I grab a box from beneath my bed and give it to him, saying, "Good. Here, put these on. These boots are used for combat. Improved traction and ease of running. Since you will undoubtedly be accompanying me from now on, these will be yours. So don't worry, they are new," I add as he walks over to my open dresser drawer, pulling out a black capture scarf. Laying over my shoulders as it moves on its own, wrapping around my arms. I move towards my chair next to my window, picking up my hoodie and slipping it over my head and slipping over my upper body. With how baggy it is, no one could tell what I'm built like. Sitting down on the same chair, I reach down, picking up one of my boots, putting it on. Quickly lacing them up and standing up. Moving back towards the open drawer, pulling out several of my chain weapons. One of them with a spar on the tip of it, as well as several packs with small balls on it. "Here, take these. The blue ones are glue that will hold the victim to the ground for approximately an hour, the red ones are flash bombs, and the black ones are smoke bombs." I told him to let the police arrive and pick them up. Katsuki put them in the top pockets of his cargo pants and said, "Okay. All right, Barrage," he said, pulling his mask and hood over his head. Under my mask, I smirk and tell him, it's time to go. The blonde's eyes widen, and now I see Silverette standing in front of me. I smirked and added, there is a button on the right near your ear that will alter your voice. As he folds the idiot in front of him and heads back into the leaving room, Katsuki nods his head. All right, folks, we'll be back, I informed them. All right, have fun, brat. With his back to him, Stain waved his hand up over his head and said, just don't blow his ass up this time. With an angry expression on her face, Mitsuki growls, you better come back safe. Yes, indeed, Auntie. I smirked as I snatched Katsuki and ran out the door, avoiding being struck by a throw pillow that had been aimed at them only moments before. We'll be safe, I said. All right, let's go, I said, making my way down the stairs and into the alleyways behind the apartment building in order to meet Hailstorm. Only 2 blocks from the red light district, in an alleyway. Between 2 buildings, in the shadows, is a figure. The individual takes his phone out of his pocket and checks the time again. When they see the person, Crimson's eyes look up from their phone. But wait, is there another person accompanying Shadow? Since Shadow rarely has a tag along, this makes them a little uneasy. Shadow, on the other hand, has consistently located strays, constructing a small army of his own. Shadow calls out in a spooky voice, Hailstorm. Hailstorm asks in a deadpan tone, Shadow, why do you have that creepy little girl voice once more? Shadow giggles in his eerie little girl voice. I laughed again and added, it is fun. As well, Barrage is slightly creeped out by it. With his dead black eyes staring back at his own crimson eyes, Hailstorm sighs again and turns to face the other. He tells him, in a tone that wasn't appropriate for the crimson-eyed boy, he does this to all those unfortunate to tag along on our little information runs. As I turn to face Hailstorm, he takes out his phone again. Ah, Hailstorm, stop picking on little old me, for we have a job to get done. Oh, by the way, have you heard from Chaos Tinker? I asked. Hailstorm grinned slightly beneath his mask and said, yes. Chaos has just messaged me before you arrived. They have your order done. They will be waiting for us back at your place along with Cliffhanger, Zatsune, as well as Raichu. I moan. In my eerie little girl voice, I complain, well, this is going to be fucking great. Hailstorm asks, why, with a perplexed expression. As my right hand moved to my neck to ensure that my hood didn't move back and reveal his face, I said, well, once this job is over, we are heading back to my house to play Guess Who My True Daddy Is. Well, I would like to join in on that game, as I wouldn't mind trading mine in for whoever you get for a father. As anyone else would even be better than a flaming assbutt. Hailstorm was deadpanned. At this, Barrage furrows his brow. He said, his voice a little shocked, well, it appears you have yourself a little crew here. If you only knew. I smirked beneath my mask. I wonder if Punk will show up or even Epic will even show up. I was singing a song aloud when I was startled out of my reverie. No amount of strength can ever save you. You will never be caught, Eraserhead. I will never sing to you, Mike. As I would if I were with you. You are aware that you have reaped what you sowed. You are the reason you are alone, you know. I was your superhero, you said. But occasionally, not everyone can be saved. Never heal yourself, recovery girl. Hawks, you'll never be held. I will never love you, Midnight. As I did and continue to do. Dango growls, his violet eyes glaring, about fucking time you showed up, you creepy little bitch. Even though I sound like the little girl who sings the Freddy Krueger song, I told him with a hint of edge, well, fuck you too, Dango. You know I am able to take the information I am about to sell you. I could sell it to Eraserhead or even Present Mike, or Midnight. For those 3 are the ones I know that don't mind getting their hands dirty. Dango's fist gets tighter. In an attempt to frighten the fucking guy in front of him, he growls, don't even say their fucking names around me, Shadow. You do know I could turn you into the cops for the shit you do. I give him a snort. Like if, who would believe your fucking ass? You already know you're on the bad side of several cops and the main detective that works with All Might and the heroes that work at UA. I told him as I crossed my arms over my torso. Hailstorm is surrounded by black ice crystals that are being licked by silver flames. Hailstorm said, I wouldn't try anything against us, Dango. For no one would bat an eye if you go missing. His crimson eyes glared back at the violet eyes, causing fear to widen. Barrage smirks as a playing card slides from his sleeve into his hand. He moves it between his middle and index fingers with ease and grace. It ignites into violet neon orange flames in an instant. His cocky smile is concealed behind his own mask as he tilts his head to the right. His voice sounded like something from a bad dream. He spoke in a deep, rough voice that had a haunting quality. His eyes seemed to be glowing as he told him, "I wouldn't try anything, fatty. With just the flick of my wrist, I could just end you here and now." Dango moves away from the crazy individual who is standing directly beside Shadow. He complains in terror, "Fine. Fine. Anyways, this will be the last time I even come to you, anyways." I laugh at him. I raised my hands in a shrug and said, "You said that last time and you called me once again. This will be the last time I ever do business with you ever again. I would say take your business to the alley weasel. We all know he isn't even as good as a toddler when it comes to gathering intel for people. At least he is the only one left willing to work with you after today. As Canary and Topcoat will not even look your way after I have a talk with them." I told him that, observing his skin turn a little pale and his eyes widen at the prospect of being rejected by the two other top informants in the city. Dango twisted his right eye at the figure in front of him. "I don't give a damn. My wife is able to support herself and our worthless son. She is pushing him towards becoming a fashion designer, as she had found some of his prototype of a hero costume. He called it Eclipse. With me giving him those dirty mags, he gives her whatever she wants. What I want to know is who are those brats he talks to online. There is one that I heard tell him he has support gear design for several of the little shit's designs," he said while snorting at Shadow. I snarl in my head. I'm now giving myself permission to express any anger I may have toward the jerk in front of me. "Well, Dango, second thought, I am not going to supply you with any information, for I wouldn't allow myself to become scum," I replied. I nodded in the opposite direction. I turned on my heel and walked away from the piece of shit, telling him, "Well, yeah." Dango yells, "You fucking piece of shit," as he charges Shadow. Shadow's body whips out a chain. The man's neck is encircled by the spiked chain. It tightens a little as I approach him slowly. "Dango, I'll be honest with you. I have been digging up dirt on you for a while, for I know you have been stepping out of underground hero work, more into becoming a villain. I caught wind of it about a year ago. I needed damning evidence before I could do anything about it," I say with a gloomy look in my face. As he started to panic, I told him, "I finally have it. I have evidence against you as well as your wife, with child abuse being the main one on the both of you." Hailstorm said, his icy voice laced with amusement, "I just called Sukauchi." I said to Hailstorm, "Good. I know he will arrest you on sight." Dango grinned up at me, his crazed laughter escaping his strangled throat. "Oh, poor little Dango. I have an excellent working relationship with Sukauchi. He has placed a leave me alone order on me, as I have the backing of several heroes, giving me protection along with my crew," I said in a tone of amusement. After a few minutes, Sukauchi shows up with several officers holding quirk suppression handcuffs. With a small smile, he said, "Hello, Shadow." I said in my eerie little girl voice, "Hello, Sukauchi." Together with the two officers, Sukauchi takes a small step back, unsure of how to react to the informant in front of them. The officer with purple skin asks, "What is with that scary little girl voice?" "Oh, I was bored and wanted to scare people away from my meeting site. For who in their rightful mind would come and check out the scary little girl singing down the alleyways?" I inquire of the man. As I take my chain off of his neck, he walks around me and goes to Dango, slapping the cuffs on him and saying, "Yeah. Not even I would bother with checking it out." Sukauchi glances at Hailstorm and then turns to Barrage, asking, "So Hailstorm, what do you and Shadow have for me and who are you?" Barrage tells him, "I'm Barrage. Today is my first day." Sukauchi gives a head nod. "Truth." He smiled as he spoke. Barrage's soulless black eyes widened in mild shock when I said, "He is a walking human lie detector. Don't worry, he isn't going to ask you anything more, for it is part of our agreement. As well, he needs your codename to add it to his list of .. do not arrest." I included it in order to help him relax. With his now soulless black eyes back on Sukauchi, Barrage nods his head. He frowned beneath his mask and remarked, "Well, I do believe we will be seeing more of each other in the near future as I am meeting more of the team. How many employees does Izuku have? How many people think he's not a helpless loser? This idea makes him uncomfortable." Sukauchi smiled and extended his hand to shake Barrage's, saying, "Well, I do hope we will have an enjoyable working relationship." Both of them shook hands. Sukauchi approaches me and asks, So what do you have on Dango that you had Hailstorm call me into the edge of the red light district? I take out multiple flash drives and files from the pocket of my hoodie. Here is the information he has requested on Eraserhead and present Mike as he wanted to take them down. I do recommend you give it to them. A lot of the stuff I have in it is fake, some of it is fact. The other files are on Dango and his wife for child abuse as well as Dango trying to kill several pro and underground pro heroes. Also I have found information on the unsolved murder of several upstart heroes. It appears Dango has been working for a group called the League of Villains. I informed him. Tsukauchi snapped his head up from the files he was holding to look at me. What? He was the one that had murdered Stardust, Warcry, and Vapor. He asks. As I moved my right hand behind my neck to keep my hood in place and keep the shadows over my face, I said, yes. I had gone over the crime scene photos you had given me. I noticed a pattern in all 3 murders. That I had also noticed in several other unsolved murders that you have on file. By the way, I am sorry. I had to hack your station to gain access. For I had remembered seeing it on the news. Tsukuaki gives this a nod. He sighed and said, it is fine. Sadly we never caught any strange activity on our networks. Hailstorm moves his left hand beneath his chin and tilts his head to the right. He told the detective in front of him, it does appear your cybernetic team needs to up their game. For sadly our weakest hacker is able to run circles around them. Tsukuaki exhales a long, agonized sigh. He said, lowering his head, it does appear so. His gaze returns to Shadow so he can hear what he has to say. Also Dango and his wife have been drugging, stealing, and giving their underage son porn. I stated to him. What? Tsukauchi asks, his voice trembling a little. He insists, why? For his wife sucks as a fashion designer and has been taking his designs. When he threatened to turn her in, she had threatened him. Then Dango began giving him dirty mags to keep him quiet. As well I had learnt he has been giving him a drug to keep the boy from growing. To make sure he will stay a midget. The kid is 15 years old and looks to be 5, maybe 7 years old. If you are pushing it, I said while wearing a mask. I have replaced his dealer without the bastard not even noticing as I have been just giving him calcium pills. For they both look the same. The kid is finally growing. He had just gotten a new supply from me just 2 days ago. Bitching that he might need something new for as I quote, the little fucker is now being to grow. End quote. I informed him. As his quirk alerts him to the fact that the individual in front of him is being truthful about everything they just said, Tsukuaki nods his head. Thank you. This is a lot to take in. I do have a question for you. He replied. I tilt my head to the right and ask, what would that be? I might need to call on you to testify on Dango and his wife. Would you be willing to do it? Tsukuaki said to me. I tilt my head slightly to the right, gazing up at the man who was marginally taller than me. Well, only if I am able to use what I am wearing or do a video testimony with me in the shadows with my voice changer. I replied. With a nod, Tsukuaki stated, believe we would be able to do that. He nodded his head once more and added, all I would have to do is speak with the judge. I am sure she would allow it. All right, you got my number, as well as my email. Just let me know what they say. I informed him. I waved to him over my head and started to leave, saying, I think it's time to go. Hailstorm looks like he needs to go do something. Tsukuaki simply shook his head at Shadow's antics and said, all right, I'll get back to you in a couple of days. Returning to Izuku's apartment, Mitsuki scowls at the man who was coughing up blood, and Yagi asks with another wet cough, so you know who young Izuku's father is? Tony raises his head from the notebook he is holding. Yes, I will only talk about it once Izuku is here. I will not talk about it beforehand. He shares with them all. As Akaguro gets up and approaches the kitchen after bandaging himself and taking a short break, they all nod. Not wanting to feel worthless, Mitsuki gets up and joins Akaguro in the kitchen to assist him in preparing dinner for everyone. As they heard the front door open, Akaguro remarked, we will be preparing dinner for 9 teenagers. That does include your son. He has recently been added to the small group of gremlins that I keep an eye on every time I am here. 5 other teenagers followed the girl with the pink hair as she said, I am telling you shortly my babies are going to be the best once we enter the UA. Denki glances around the living room at the adults. The others hadn't noticed the other people in the room with them, so he said, guys. Jiro looked up from her cell phone and asked, what? I can now see who else is in the living room. She asks, What are you doing in Izu's place? The others leave their conversation because of this. Every teenager adopts a distinct fighting stance. They are prepared to defend themselves and their friend, who may be imprisoned in this apartment. Akaguro yells from the kitchen, "Calm yourselves, brats." He is out on a mission with Hailstorm and a new brat. They all seem to unwind around the men seated in the living room as if a switch had been flipped. Aizawa furrows his brow at what he sees. The 6 teenagers were prepared to fight to save their friend, whom they thought was in danger. As his cell phone rang, he thought to himself, they would make fine heroes one day. When he realizes who is calling, a moan slips out of his mouth. He tries to sigh before answering his phone. "Hello, Nezu." Aizawa replied. "Hello, Aizawa. It has been a little over 2 hours. You haven't shown up with young Izuku or young Katsuki yet." Nezu responds. "Well, sir, Izuku is on a job and Katsuki has gone along with him. I do not know when they will be returning to the apartment." Aizawa responds. "That's okay. Present Mike, Hound Dog, and I are just climbing the stairs to his apartment." Nezu answers, "I just wanted to let you know." As the Samara hangs up without saying another word, Aizawa responds, "All right, sir." The now perplexed teenagers follow Aizawa as he gets up and walks past the apartment's front door, their gazes following the hobo-looking man wearing what appear to be multiple white scarves around his shoulders. 3 people are standing on the other side of the door, and when Aizawa opens it, Tony's gaze narrows on the principal of UA, the damn chimera. "What brings you here, Nezu?" Tony asks, getting up from his chair and heading for the small hallway. With wide eyes, the 6 teenagers leave the men and make their way to the hallway that leads to Izuku's room. Denki leans in Shinso's direction and murmurs softly, "Isn't that Nezu?" The principal of UA along with Present Mike and Hound Dog. He asks, glancing at the boy with the violet eyes. Denki's golden eyes catch Shino's as he whispers back, "Yeah, I don't know why they are here." The others simply stare at the two. As Hound Dog has multiple roles in the UA, Jiro frowned and said, "I have a feeling this has something to do with Izuku. His primary responsibility is to serve as a counselor for students who have experienced significant trauma. She shares this with her friends, who slowly nod in agreement. He is renowned for both hand-to-hand combat and tracking. Jiro has a point, I believe." Kirishima frowned as he recalled some of their conversations regarding bullying they had experienced. Izuku must have been caught doing something that had brought some negative attention to himself for 2 of the 3 men to be here. Flashback. "What made you want to be Shadow, Izuku?" Kirishima asks, his crimson eyes meeting electric green ones with a questioning look in his eyes. "I couldn't take my eyes off of his red eyes because I could see the anguish behind them. He had lost faith in people he loved, and those people had betrayed his trust. I've been bullied all my life. I've received worse treatment than that of a second-class citizen." I laughed dryly and said, "Hell, animals get better treatment than I do." "Why you have been bullied?" Kirishima asked, her eyes widening in shock. "Why, you're a fantastic man. Never abandon anyone," I said, my voice laced with shock. I laugh again. "Nah, dude, for being quirkless, I get shit. This world is like that, you know, if you don't have any quirks." I told him, "The school doesn't even stop the bullying. You are worthless and shouldn't be alive." In order to start a new family in America, my dysfunctional father bounced. After some time, my mother stopped taking care of me. Yes, in order to keep me out of the house, she paid for my classes. You are aware of the proverb, "Out of sight, out of mind." After some time, she started letting her bastard beat me. Until I demonstrated that they couldn't even touch me. I showed the newest bastard she's with that I couldn't even beat a kid. They departed. Left me without anything and alone. I'm fortunate that my unidentified grandfather covers all of this place's expenses, gives me money every week, and my uncle Akaguro is now there to support me when I need him. In addition to him demonstrating to me that anyone can be a hero, I told him, grinning sadly. "Fuck man," Kirishima said, her eyes widening in surprise. My family's disapproval of my bisexuality made me feel like I had it bad. I frowned as I said, "With them telling me I am unnatural." "You are aware that you are welcome to move in with me at any time." I told my friend, grinning, "You don't have to live in a toxic home." "Man, thank you." Kirishima smiled and said, "I might take you up on it sometime in the future." The flashback has ended. I hope you don't mind. I am taking you up on your offer, man, he thought to himself as he tightened his hold on the handles of his duffel bag. "So, will you tell us? Mineta asks, glancing up at the boy behind her. He has been bullied pretty badly at his junior school, Kirishima said, lifting his left hand to the bridge of his nose and pinching it. Elevated. He told them, he must have done something to draw in Eraserhead, Iron Man, and the others here. He waved his hand at the other people in the living room. To the point that several girls and a few guys, as well as several teachers have suicide baited him. Because Izuku kept his own secrets from everyone and didn't want to burden others with his own problems, the others' eyes widened in shock and horror. Everyone in the apartment had noticed that the kids were talking a bit too loudly for their own good, to the extent that Present Mike and Nezu had recorded what the teenagers were discussing, exchanging glances, and would be calling Naomasa. The front door is opening, and 3 boys are standing in the doorway, taking in all the new people in the apartment. My gaze focuses on the duffel bag that Kirishima is holding, and I push past them all as I go toward my friend, noticing his red eyes lowering to the floor without making eye contact. I stand in front of Kirishima now, and I put my hand up to his right cheek, cupping it as my thumb wipes away the tear that is streaming down his cheek. I take his hand and lead him down the hallway, saying, "Let me show you to your new room." Everyone's eyes are now on our backs as they watch us vanish into the long, dark hallway. I am fortunate that this place has 5 bedrooms. Yes, I consider it small, but it is a good size because I can accommodate multiple people. Man, thank you. Kirishima's head hung low as he said, "They threw me out. They caught me. I was kissed by a man I had been chatting with for some time. It was seen by the woman I call my mother. I had pushed him back with my hands on his chest. I didn't want him to touch me at all. I told him not to touch me at all." He looked down the street to where she was standing with her cell phone out and grinned at me. While she was filming it, my father had received it from her. After I arrived home, these bags contained everything I owned. He had discovered my bag as well. He never gave it a glance, simply threw it at me and told me to leave his house immediately. He doesn't have a son. I do have all of my documents and paperwork. My bag contains them. For a long time, I sensed that something was wrong. Because they had been acting a little strangely around me, he said, gazing up at me while his eyes began to well up with tears. I clench my fist. "Don't be alarmed." I informed him that Mineta would be moving in with us tonight and that I would find a way to take care of it. To retrieve his belongings, we'll need to visit his former residence. I smirked and told him, his parents are in jail, as I lifted my phone to show him the text message Tsukauchi had sent me moments earlier. Kirishima's eyes widened in surprise. Dango messed up at last. He leans forward and rests his forehead on Izuku's shoulder as he asks. "Yes, he finally did," I said, drawing him into an embrace and letting my friend express whatever feelings he needed to let go of in order to free his soul from the suffering and hell his dysfunctional family had subjected him to for so long. This made Kirishima snort. "All right, let's go back to the others. Because it looks like Shoto and, who's that?" he asks, nodding his head in the direction of the other boy who was standing beside Shoto and obstructing the hallway entrance so that the other boys cannot follow the two. "Oh, that's Kachin," I said with a smirk on my face. His old friend finally relaxed when he was called by his childhood nickname, which he had a hard time saying when they were younger. "Oh, so you two have resolved your differences at last." Kirishima looks at the boy in front of him and asks, "What?" "Yes, in a way." As Kirishima cleans his face and blows his nose with a tissue that just appeared, I tell him, "We are on the road to mending things." We then walk back to the others. Mei jumps onto my back and puts her arms around my neck as I pass her on my way into the living room, grinning. "Iron-chan, after everyone has left, will we have any more children?" With a huge smile on her face, Mei asks. All of the adults stare at the two with wide eyes while the other teenagers, well, not Katsuki, start laughing. The man in the kitchen is preparing dinner for everyone in the house. "Fucking scumbags," one Mitsuki roared, her own crimson eyes burning as she rushed into the living room, glaring at the two teenagers in front of her. I look up at her and blink. "What?" is the only response I could offer to her query. "I've built a lot of babies with iron." As her scope eyes glistened with delight at the prospect of a functional robot, Mei exclaimed, "We are currently working on building a robot." She added, smiling like the cat that caught the mouse, "We want to make our own Gundam." At what the Pinkett had just said, Mitsuki's mouth was trying to form words, her jaw hanging open, her anger fading. "What?" is the only wise thing she can say. You didn't know what she meant about what she said about Making babies, I snort as it finally dawns on me what has her so upset. Did you? I ask her. At his words, the ash blonde could only nod her head stupidly. May uses shock value in that way. Since we started dating 2 years ago and she moved in when she was just 11 years old, it has become more of a habit. I grinned as I glanced out the corner of my right eye at the happy girl hanging off my shoulder. Moved in. Now that his mother's mouth has frozen once more, Katsuki asks as he moves in front of her. Yes, here's iron. I was discovered to be homeless. Foster care was where I was. That is, until the abusive family started kicking me out of the house and only letting me back in when my caseworker arrived. Thus, the day the woman was supposed to arrive, they let me in. The room is where I went. I had received it from them. I grabbed my white tank top, black pants, and a few other things from my closet. I showered. I went back to my room, picked up my filthy backpack, and packed everything I owned. I put on my worn-out black hoodie and tennis. I ghosted myself out of that family and slipped out the window. A week later, I learned that they were now incarcerated. The other children revealed the truth. Well, I was permanently homeless. Iron discovered me a week or so later. May said, smiling again, her frown gone. He was searching for scrap metal and he found me huddled up in the corner of an alleyway and the rest is history. Even though your mom left you, Mitsuki said, opening and closing her mouth multiple times as her gaze swept over the other teenagers in the living room before returning to Izuku, despite the fact that you must stretch every last penny. Do you still welcome people in need into your home and heart? With the pinkett dangling from his shoulder, the greenette stands in front of her as she asks him a question. Yeah, I say with a smile. They are both my family and friends. I wouldn't abandon them at all. Additionally, the landlord lets me use this space however I please. He doesn't care because the rent is always paid. Since I'm the only person on the upper floor, I informed everyone, so, in order to expand this small space, we moved into another apartment. May grinned broadly and said, nothing we couldn't handle. Tony chuckles and smirks at the children in front of him. So that is the reason the rent had gone up several months ago. As Akagoro emerged from the kitchen, the adults turned to face him, and all the teenagers were staring at him again. Dinner is ready, he said. I suppose you could wait until after dinner to tell the children whatever you want to. You could also tell them all while we're eating. I don't care about it. Now, I'll tell you everything. Any mess you create while we're eating, you'll be tidying up. Since I am not your fucking maid, he growls, causing everyone seated nearby to move away from him or take a step back. I have never been a settled man, you know that. I'll just tell you everything right now. Your father is Yagi Toshinori, Tony said, sweeping his gaze across the room before settling on Izuku. From there, we could discuss everything during dinner. Also known as, the boy interrupts him. Izuku's eyes enlarge in surprise as his head abruptly turns to face Yagi. All Might is my father. Everyone in the apartment freezes in shock as he asks this question. Not a sound is made, and even Yagi's jaw drops. His electro-blue eyes dart from Tony to his son. What? As all Yagi is able to say as he begins coughing up blood once more. For a moment there Yagi appeared that he was going to pass out from the shock and bloodlust. Mitsuki rushes over to the blonde's side. Are you all right? She questions him with worry and fear in her voice. As it appeared the man's condition seemed to worsen since the teens had returned from Izuku's job. As he waves the ash blonde away, Yagi says, No, I am fine. His gaze shifts to Tony, who merely nods. Are you sure? He asks whether the man is telling him the truth because he has many regrets in life, and not having children and starting a family of his own is one of his biggest regrets. Tears start to form in his eyes as he looks at his only child. How can you be sure that he is the father of Izuku? With his brown eyes fixed on Tony, Masaru asks. Because I took the DNA sample I had of my grandson, Tony says with a sly smile. Due to the idiot my foolish daughter married. Because he insisted on a paternity test. When I was asked to assist with Yagi's medical condition. Regarding my break thoughts in the medical field, I therefore recalled the time she was seeing a charming blonde boy who, although he looked American, was actually Japanese. I received a sample of your DNA at that time. Izuku's DNA and a sample of it were tested to determine this. When I learned that you are his father, I wasn't surprised. An additional justification for attending. The primary reason I came here today is to get to know my grandchild, to support him on the course he wants to take in the future. I've discovered that you aspire to be a hero. As he closed his eyes and looked up at the apartment ceiling, he said, I have many regrets within my life. He smiled and said, I am planning on passing the mantle of Iron Man to you. He then slowly opened his eyes and placed his right hand on the bridge of his nose. That is a story for another time, he said. From a different time, he remarked, shrugging off the attention that was now focused on him by everyone in the room. I approached my grandfather and looked up into his electric green eyes, saying, well, that is shocking and enlightening. So, how are you going to save my father's life? This was a little unsettling, taking things out of my control. With everything I have done since becoming Shadow, I held all the control. Now my life is spinning into chaos. I just frown. I asked him. So, what does that signify for us? As his twin older sister Shizuka, who is their mother's golden child, Denki is questioned about how this had also become his home after he fled it when his mother had shown him no love. Tony frowns as he turns back to face his grandson and asks the boy, who else lives here with you? Before he even considers discussing what he will be doing for Yagi, he asks, I will respond to your inquiries regarding your father shortly. I will only share it with the others if he wants me to, he added thoughtfully. I nod in response to his inquiry and turn to face my friends, who also nod. Well, 6 of them reside here. Mineta and Ejiro moved in today, though. I honestly respond, Denki, Jiro, Mei, and Shinso live here with me. Why do they all reside with you? Tony asks, his eyes never leaving Izuku's. Well, Mei did explain why she lives here. Denki moved in shortly after Mei, I sighed. He was essentially disowned by his mother. He was a failure in her eyes, while Shizuka, his twin sister, had emerged as the ideal child. No wrong could be done by the girl. She has a very simple quirk that is simple to manage. As for Denki's quirk, I started telling them that it is dangerous. You mean that his peculiarity poses a threat? Aizawa asks as he steps forward, his silver eyes gazing down into Denki's golden eyes. With a look of shame on his face, Denki withdraws into himself. Well, electrification is my quirk. I had terrible control over it at the time, and sometimes I still do. He responds, his eyes lowering toward the floor as he feels ashamed of his own peculiarity. At what the boy just told him, Aoyaza raises an eyebrow. All right, what is the peculiarity of your sister? He asks. Slowly returning the man's gaze, Denki responds, well, her quirk is a shock touch. Aoyaza lets out a long, painful sigh and lifts his right hand to run his fingers through his hair. That isn't a reason to disown a child. He gives the boy a gentle smile and says, as well, if one thinks logically, your sister's quirk is the weakest of the two. Denki's head suddenly turns to face the man in front of him. Really? He asks, his voice laced with shock. Remember Fluffy's big doe eyes saying, really? As he squats down in front of the boy, Aoyaza says, yes, if someone had taken the time to work with you and you had some quirk counseling. His right hand goes from his hair to the boy's left shoulder. He tells the boy, who is now fighting back his own tears, I am sure anyone here is willing to aid you to gain control of your quirk. Izuku steps forward and says, I am licensed to provide quirk counseling. Because my small family has a number of dangerous eccentricities, he informs them. How many dangerous quirks are under this roof? Nezu is now vibrating on Present Mike's shoulder. His black beady eyes sparkle with excitement as he asks. Well, Mei's quirk is great for a sniper because it's zoom, and if she had fallen into the hands of a villain, Izuku says, turning to face the Chimera Overlord of UA. For the hero world, it would have been disastrous. Then there is Shoto, who has an ice and fire quirk. In order to avoid burning himself with either quirk, he must be able to control both elements. Next up is Iriho, whose peculiarity, hardening, may also be considered dangerous. Where his skin becomes stone hard. Next is Shinso, who has the peculiarity of brainwashing. Where he has the power to both plant ideas into your head and control it. Because of her ear jacks, Jiro has the ability to listen in on anyone and amplify their heartbeats, which could be dangerous. At last, we have Mineta, whose peculiarity is evident. His hair broke off into the spares that are visible on his head. They get sticky and can keep you in place for a very long time. Izuku tells Nezu and the others, whose eyes widened in shock at what the teenager had just told them all in this brief moment, that could go bad quickly because he could stick someone on a train track or in the middle of the highway. Remember to include yourself. With your kind of mind. Tony pointed to one of Izuku's quirk books on heroes and villains and said to his grandson, even though you don't have any quirks, it's really dangerous in this world we live in. Izuku blushes a little, rubs the back of his neck with his right arm, and sighs, telling his grandfather and the others, I don't think I am that smart. Everyone in the apartment gasps in disbelief at this. What do you mean? Brat, everything you have done and are doing, Mizuki demands, squinting her ruby eyes at her nephew. Nobody your age can accomplish that. She tells him, hell, not even people my own age are able to do what you do, as her frown softens into a kind grin at the greenette. My son. Nezu speaks up from his position on Present Mike's shoulder, saying, your intelligence is on par with my own, even your analysis skills are even beyond even my own. This has everyone staring at the UA overlord with even more shock because he would never acknowledge that someone's intelligence is higher than his own. The words of Nezu, whose quirk is high specs, essentially an intelligence quirk, make Izuku blush even more. Thank you, I guess, he responds honestly, unsure of the veracity of what he is being told. Difficult child, it would be great if you could keep me and other heroes alert whenever we interact with you. I wouldn't say this lightly, Shota tells the boy in front of him. You are intelligent as well as having skills that are normally ignored by others. Because I am a rational individual, he continues. Before he remembers, Izuku gives the man a sheepish smile and says, oh, I do have something to tell you. His smile is replaced by a frown as he tells Shota, I know you will be very upset as well. What would that be? Present Mike, weary of being silent, raises a questioning voice. Izuku frowns as he turns to face Shinso, who nods, walks down the hallway, enters Izuku's room, and returns after a few minutes with several files in his hands. He approaches Izuku and hands them to him, and Izuku says, thank you. Shinso smirks and tells him, no problem. He then turns around and joins the others in standing. What are those? With his golden eyes narrowed on the files in the boy's hands, Hound Dog asks. Dango had asked me to provide these files. Files upon midnight, Present Mike, and Eraserhead. Izuku responds to the werewolf-like man beside Present Mike. What the heck? Present Mike starts to scream, but Eraser stops the man's quirk by snapping his head in the direction of his best friend, his hair floating and his silver eyes glowing crimson. So that little bastard asked for details about us. Shota asks, frowning, blinking, and turning back to face Izuku. Yes, since he has been preparing to remove the three of you. He had been told that you three were getting close to solving a number of unsolved murders in which he either participated or committed the crime. He was by no means incorrect. Because I was the one who connected everything and intended to give it to Tsukauchi or one of you. At long last, Dango is no longer involved. He was going to turn on me, but I had had enough of his nonsense, so I turned him into Tsukauchi and gave him everything. Izuku informs them, the files in my hands, these are the ones I do believe you would want to destroy. Tsukauchi's files contain only a small amount of information and are primarily lies and misdirection. He looks away and continues, because these have everything on all three of you. Shota reaches out and grabs the teen's files, then flips open the file about himself. His eyes, which were previously filled with fatigue, are now filled with terror, and his silver eyes slowly return to Izuku. How? As he looks up at the boy in front of him, he asks himself this question. Izuku sighs and looks directly at the man in front of him. I and the others followed after you, he says, running his right hand through his green hair. While some are taking notes, others are filming or photographing each of you. He stops, his eyes glazing over to Mei, and says sheepishly, then I went on hero forums and did more research as well. We hacked the World Hero Association. I, W, want, all, of the, M, as, M. My, V, very, O, own, person, al, stud, students. Nezu screams so loudly that he falls off Present Mike's shoulder with crazed cackles. Everyone's attention is drawn to the chimera, whose wild laughter makes the entire apartment tense. No, Shota growls at the chimera and shakes his head, glaring at his boss. As his laughter stops, Nezu whimpers, but, I want them. As he lets out the millionth sigh of the day, Shota tells his boss, no buts. Nezu's beady black eyes take on a sinister gleam. You know Shota, he tells the horrified teacher, I am your boss, and I have the power to take away your nap time and to expel any and all of the students from UA. You wouldn't. The chimera slowly turns to face Shota, who asks him a question. With a sly smile, Nezu says, "Oh, you damn well know I will." All right. In any case, Shota stated in a deadpan tone, they will be placed in class -1A, and when they are finished with my class and hero training and may finished with support classes will meet with you. He didn't want to lose his nap time or his authority over the students. Then Nezu clasped his paws together and said, "Excellent." Denki shook and said, "Creepy." He added, "I don't want to meet with him after school." He collapsed to the ground, balling up, tears streaming down his cheeks as Mei and Jiro attempted to console him. Mizuki snarls at the chimera who is now standing beside Shota, saying, "You made him cry." "I apologize." As he raises his paw to deter her attack, Nezu tells her, "I didn't mean to make the boy cry." Izuku glares at the chimera in front of him, his eyes hardening. "Denki has a learning disability," he says. "He has dyslexia. You're putting him under this kind of pressure. It won't help him at all," he informs the chimera in a voice that has authority over the entire apartment. The way the boy in front of them spoke to their boss left Present Mike, Hound Dog, and Eraser speechless. "I don't think I've ever had anyone speak to me in such a tone," Nezu says, tilting his head to the right and rubbing his chin with his left paw. His beady eyes met emerald green ones as he said, "Not even Shota there." "Oh, Principal Nezu is someone I know. Because you are feared by all." As I cross my arms over my chest, Izuku tells him, "Well, pretty much everyone," with a faint smirk on his face. "Because I do know you have destroyed many heroes, villains, schools, companies, and so on." "You are a very cheeky young man," Nezu snorts. "Or perhaps a very stupid young man," he says to the boy in front of him. I give him a devilish, insane smile that I know I've seen Nezu give to people before, and I tell him, I might be a little more insane. "Excellent." Nezu tells him, "Mr. Midoriya, I like you." I smile and tell him, "I'm glad to hear that." Tony tells the chimera, snorting, "About fucking time someone puts your little furry ass in your place." "Oh, Tony, I've got respect for the boy." Nezu tells the hero from a different world and era, "It only takes the brave or the foolish soul to stand up to the likes of me." "All right, you tiny rat. I could care less what you think. Just be aware. If you attempt to harm my grandson, I'm going to take you away." Tony threatens him, "From you." "Oh, Mr. Stark, I am aware of this." With a contemplative expression on his face, Nezu informs him, "For strangling enough, your lawyers are rather better than the ones I have on retainer for My Hero Academy." Tony grins as he tells him, "Fear creates the best." "I understand." Nezu thinks to himself, "I may need to check if the other attorneys I have ruined in court have the motivation to improve." Toshinori, fed up with everything that's going on right now, transforms into his All Might form and yells, "Enough. I'm curious as to why this secret was kept from me." With all eyes on him and his electric blue eyes glowing with hurt and rage, he demands. "I'm not sure. I had just stopped calling her my mother, so I gave him an honest response with a frown on my face. I do think I have finally accepted that she will never come back to me, nor will she ever accept me as her child. Knowing her, she might have already replaced me with that fucker's child." I snorted to myself at that last thought. Inko is the only one that could truly answer that question for you. "I know," Toshinori says, slowly nodding his head as he shrivels back up into a skeleton and loses his buff form. "I'm just heartbroken that I didn't know about you. I had no idea that you had required my assistance since you were 4 years old. I'm sorry I didn't support you," he said, "never being the father. Not the parent you needed at that very moment." His hands dropped in front of him, keeping his trembling, sobbing form from hitting the ground as he fell to his knees. "If only I had known earlier." With a menacing gleam in his eyes, Tony says, "I do think I would have gone to America and dragged your ass back kicking and screaming." With a defeated sigh, Toshinori looks up at the man and says, "I would have allowed you to drag me back. Even though I might have fought you. Because I wasn't strong enough to protect him at the time, nor," he looks away, not finishing that sentence. "It might have been for the best you hadn't known," Tony says, nodding his head in comprehension. He tells the fallen man in front of him, "Because Izuku would have been used against you." Now that Izuku is agitated, I whisper, "The boogeyman." My friends and family froze, having heard about him from underground for some time. Katsuki gives me a perplexed look and asks, "What are you talking about?" He asks me questions. I turn to face him. The boogeyman. The one who will enter the rooms of mischievous little boys and girls and take their peculiarities. He is genuine. I had been doing some research because we have also been hearing about him. What I discovered. All I can say to him before I'm dragged up to meet my father's electric eyes is, he is ancient and deadly. Why? You've been looking for me, but why? Toshinori asks his son to do something. I muttered back to him, I wanted to know if the rumors were true. Izuku is the man who nearly killed me 5 years ago, as you are aware. The man who caused this injury to me, Toshinori informs his naive son. My eyes widened in panic and fear, and I told my dad, the boogeyman is still alive. I turned my head away from him, my eyes full of shame. Then what I am going to tell you now isn't going to be good. His feet weren't prepared to support his entire body weight, so Toshinori lets go of his son's hoodie and the boy falls to his ass. A man with blue hair enters through the front door, followed by a blonde girl. Hey boss, he says. The man stopped in his tracks when he saw everyone standing in the living room and Izuku on his ass on the floor. We got some information that you are going to need, he said. As the blonde draws out multiple kunai, blue flames start to dance around his body, hardening his crystal blue eyes. She's grinning at them. Dabi scans the living room with his eyes. His azure eyes paused on his younger sibling. He asks his younger brother, Shoto, what the fuck is going on here? Shoto tells Izuku in a deadpan voice, family drama. We just met Izuku's dad and grandfather. Dabi straightens up, blinking foolishly at everyone in the living room as his flames go out. He glances down at Izuku, who appears to be slightly shocked. He asks his brother, well fuck. Are they going to adopt us? Shoto says, I dunno. Haven't had a chance to ask. To his bro. Tony raises an eyebrow at the young man with two-tone skin who appears to be healing slowly and the girl with blonde hair who is standing next to him with daggers between her fingers. He looks at his grandson with brown eyes. He asks Izuku, who are these two? He turns to face his grandfather. He grins as he tells his grandfather, this is Dabi and Himiko Toga, they are part of the Shadow Unit. As well as my brother and sister in all but blood. Shota briefly examines Dabi and Toga as he recognizes the two people in front of him. He turns to face Toga and asks the young man in front of him, Dabi, I know you from the underground hero agency that I run. With a cheeky smile on his terrified face, Dabi tells him, yeah. I'm known as Pyro Abyss. Toga smiles at Shota and the others and starts to jump up and down. In between fits of mania, she tells them, I am known as Thaya. Shota is now furrowing his brow at this. As he observes the girl start to pout at him, he remarks, Thaya operates more as a vigilantly than an underground hero. Well, I can't help it. I looked up to Stain growing up as he had a mission to take down those heroes who were fakes and in for it for just the money and fame. So, I wanted to follow him and become someone who fights to keep the hero world pure. But when I found out that he is an underground hero, I figure why not? Anyways, my family doesn't care, and with Izu-kun's help, I got my GED and assessed to get my hero license without going to a hero school. Yes, it was a pain in the ass. But I got it, Toga tells him as she puts her hands on her hips and give him a smug smile at the end. Shota sighs in agony at the girl in front of him. Nezu tells her from Shota's captured scarf, my dear, you have my interest now with how you found your way into becoming a hero and not a villain. The creature's words make Toga laugh. She tells him, laughing and smiling maniacally, well, after meeting Stain and Izu-kun. My views changed slightly, but it doesn't stop me from making those fake heroes look like fools from time to time. As he turns to face the man who came out of nowhere to alter his life forever, Izuku tells his grandfather, yeah, it was weird one day out of the blue when I was about 10 they both showed up on my doorstep looking for Stain as well as Dabi looking for his little brother Shoto. Hazashi grinned and looked at everyone through his sunglasses, taking in the drama that was unfolding in front of him. I bet. Shota gives the voice hero a grumpy glare for his antics. He growls at him, saying, Mike, now isn't the time. Hold his hands up. Hazashi's fingers turn into finger guns and he smiles at the man. The other man. Shota shakes his head and looks back at all the troublesome kids in front of him. As his right hand approaches his temple, he complains, I have a headache. Rubbing his forehead slowly. Izuku smiles. His mischievous jade green eyes sparkle as he tells the underground hero, well, I am sorry Mr. Aizawa. But this is how it is. We are not going to be a UA's normal student. Around him, people are laughing and giggling. Aizawa collapses back onto the couch and sighs. Knowing that rat will make them his problem, he gives up on his destiny. He gives the rat overlord a fierce look. Tony draws all the attention back to himself by clearing his throat. He claps his hands together and says, "Well people, it has been nice to see some of you again and as well as meeting all of you. However, I do believe it is time for my grandson to spend a little time for himself and his father." His eyes brightened slightly as he hoped that some of them would depart. Specifically, the UA Rat Overlord. Nezu gives Tony a smile. He addresses the man in front of him, saying, "Well, Mr. Stark. We still have business here." He narrowed his eyes at the rat object. He raises his voice. He looks at the two boys who have started this process and asks, "So, you are going through with the boys speaking with Hound Dog?" Hound Dog moved forward. He looked at Tony and the two boys and said, "Yes, as they both need to speak about their past and healing. I know this will be the first of many meetings between the three of us." Mizuki got up from where she was sitting on the couch beside Aizawa. Her husband nodded in agreement as she told Tony, "I do know they need this. I do agree with Mr. Hound Dog." Shizome got out of his armchair. She is right, as Izuku does need this. As he bottles everything up. As he doesn't want to bother people about his problems, but he isn't fazed about listening to others and helping them with their problems. He said with a nod to Mizuki. Tony was aware that Nezu was obstructing his path once more and that he would not be leaving anytime soon. He takes a phone out of his pocket and says, "Okay. I would prefer to continue this back at Stark Tower." Tony said into the phone, "Hello Joy." The voice that everyone assumed to be Joy said, "Yes, Mr. Stark. Is there something I could do for you?" Tony smiles and says, "Yes, Joy. I would like you to bring my stretch SVU, as I have several people needing a ride to Stark Tower." Joy answers him and hangs up without saying anything more. "Yes, sir, I am on my way." As Yagi gapes at the man who was the grandfather of his son and the father of the woman he used to know and love, Aizawa rolls his eyes. With a hint of annoyance in his voice, Aizawa declared, "I will drive myself and whoever else." Tony gives a head nod. Those who had driven themselves here should be able to drive themselves there. He stated. He turns to face the others. Mizuki grinned and replied, "Yeah, that's fine." Still grinning at the limelight hero in front of him, she told Tony, "I have been dying for years to see the inside of Stark Towers for a while now." In response to the woman's antics, Tony simply rolled his eyes. He smiled back at her and said, "Well, I hope it lives up to what you think about my secondary home." Izuku looks directly at his grandfather and asks, "Do we need anything?" For several minutes, Tony stood there contemplating. "I want you all to move into the tower, but if you don't want to live there, you can move into my house outside of town. However, we can come back and get everything." After a moment of being a little shell-shocked, Izuku shook his head and asked, "What do you mean by moving into Stark Tower?" As he looks back at his friends and toward his adopted uncle, he asks, "I would like to move all you kids into my home," Tony says, his smile softening as he looks at his grandson, who is engaged in a mental battle. "You can't live like this. I am aware that you have done well for yourself and that Shizome has been looking out for you over the years. However," he tells the boy standing in front of his friends in a protective way, "I would like to be a part of your life as well as your friends as they seem to need someone in their corner to back them up and protect them from those who want to hurt them. In addition, your grandmother has been pressuring me to bring you home for some time. She can be reckless with Inko because she was a..." Tony stops thinking because he knows it won't be a positive thing to say about his daughter. With his head tilted to the right, Izuku asks, "My grandmother?" Since Tony had learned the hard way to keep the outside world out of his personal life from Pepper, he queries his lack of knowledge about the woman's identity. "Yes, your grandmother is a hero in her own right," he sighs. Since she was the first rated R heroine in hero history, he tells them, "She is known as the Mistress of Darkness, also known as Elvira Kurogari Stark, my wife." Many people's eyes widen at the mention of her name. "Is my grandmother the Mistress of Darkness?" Izuku stutters out, his face displaying pure shock and his voice betraying incredulousness. Some of the children want to pass out when Tony tells them, laughing, "Yes, she is your grandmother and my loving and crazy wife." Nezu says, "I am surprised you had kept your family secret for long, Mr. Stark," to the man in front of him. Tony gives the rat a quick glance before telling everyone, "One must do whatever it takes to keep their family out of the limelight, as sometimes it will come back to bite you in the ass." His intense gaze challenges Nezu to try anything against his family or himself. For his part, Nezu raises his paws and says, "Don't worry. Because disclosing such information would be against my code as a hero. As if it would help me." I also don't want to be on your wife's bad list. With a shiver going through his furry body, he remarked, as I have witnessed what she does to those who land on it. Tony, how would I see or even train a young Izuku to take over if he were to move in with you once I am no longer able to be the world's and Japan's greatest hero? Yagi asks, appearing to be crestfallen as he looks at his son in the know. True hero. Tony approaches the fallen man on the crest and puts his hand on Yagi's right shoulder, saying, if you wish. He tells the skeleton of a man in front of him, you can move in with us and get to know your son as well as the woman who should have been your mother-in-law. Are you sure she wouldn't mind me moving in? Yagi asks, her electric blue eyes widening with surprise, delight, and what seems to be fear. His body slumps slightly from worry as he asks in a tone that combines hope and concern. I'm positive, she is a kind and compassionate person. Tony tells the man in front of him, I'm sure she would be okay with you getting to know your son and our grandson. Mei jumps on Izuku's shoulder and says, Sue, that means all of us, right? Her gaze focuses on Tony as she asks the man. He smiles as he turns back to face the insane genius who has captured his grandson's heart. Yes, everyone, if you'd like. To make sure he is calming them down, he says, we can schedule a day for us to return and pick everything up here. Izuku took the stage now and said, could we keep this place? We work hard on this place as well because it is a part of our base, he tells his grandfather in front of him. I fail to see why not. Izuku's face brightens as Tony tells the boy, if you would like, I could buy this place for you. You can keep renting out the other apartments to the people who live here as well. Make it a safe house for those who need to get away from those who may try to hurt them. That would be fantastic. In any case, due to the building's low cost and the fact that some residents have nowhere else to go, only 6 people live in the 20 apartments. According to what I've heard, the landlord wants to sell this property. Izuku tells him, but stopped each time he received that big check from you for the 5 apartments I had taken over. All right, it's resolved. I will have Mint forward the contracts to purchase this property for a sumptuous retirement gift for the elderly gentleman. Izuku gives him one of his dazzling smiles. Everyone in the room melted at the thought of harming the small cinnamon roll in front of them. They had just finished discussing Tony purchasing the apartment complex for Izuku when Tony's phone rang. As he picks it up, a female voice can be heard on the other end. Joy tells him in a stoic tone, I have arrived and waiting downstairs for your guest. As the call ends, Tony tells her, all right, we will be down in a few. He complains to himself, recalling the times when Happy would always be there for him in any trouble he might get into. I wish she would live up to her name and not be a killjoy. Tony looked around the room and shook his head. Well people, it's time to go. He claps his hands together and smiles as he says this. Izuku and his companions rush to the door, eager to see the appearance of the woman named Joy and the vehicle she is driving. To see the woman who works closely with Iron Man and doesn't seem to put up with his nonsense, all the teenagers rush past Tony and the other adults, dangling from the 4th floor landing railing. Observing the enormous SUV, the SUV in black is slightly bigger than a typical SUV. However, a woman with long golden brown hair and golden brown skin is standing next to the SUV. She is dressed in a black suit jacket with a white blouse underneath. Denki looks back at Tony and asks, so that's Joy. Having their first conversation with the man since returning to the apartment. Tony laughs. He says to the boy with the blonde hair and the black thunderbolt in his hair, yes, that is Joy. As they all gave him strange looks, Tony explained, she is my personal bodyguard. She has been with me for about 20 years now. The man has a perplexed look on his face as Ejiro asks, why would you need a bodyguard? Tony chuckles, well, as a businessperson myself, I do not always carry my suit with me. Well, until now I do have an emergency suit. But during that time, I was advised that I should have a bodyguard. So, I did what I was told to do. Anyways, it has been fun to have someone to keep me on schedule. He says after a brief pause. He laughed and continued, well, I guess she has also been my personal assistant even though I have one as well. All they could do was stare at the man in front of them. While the others simply rolled their eyes at him, some were taken aback by their antics. Izuku tells his grandfather and the others, well, I need to get my bag and I will be down. After Izuku enters the apartment, the other teenagers exchange glances. Katsuki was left standing by himself with the adults. Mizuki seizes the opportunity and approaches her son. Speaking, she says, Katsuki. She looks up at her miniature self. He asks in a hollow voice, "Yeah, Mom. I am upset with you. I really do think you will need to go into therapy for your actions in the past. But, I also understand you had been brainwashed in a way with the adults at your school inflating that ego of yours and telling you and encouraging you into bullying Izuku." Mizuki stated to him. She draws him into an embrace. The ash blonde started crying as a result of this action. He has allowed the dams to break. Everyone walks back to this scene, observing his mother holding the ash blonde while he sobbed. Stepping back, Katsuki glances up at his mother. As someone hands him a tissue from behind him, he wipes his face with the hoodie's sleeve and tells her, "I do agree like I had said earlier. It is something I truly need." Glancing back at the person who gave it to him, Izuku is standing behind him, grinning at him. He smiles shyly and tells him, "Don't worry. We both need therapy and joint. So, we can work out our issues." Aizawa wanted to get to the meeting he had scheduled with Izuku and the now favorite Inko, so he said, "All right people. Let's get this finished with. For I still need to finish my meeting with Izuku, and while I have the rest of you here, I shall take care of them as well. For I need a nap." He sighed. "All right." The group of teenagers agreed. Several of them leapt off the railings on the second floor and onto the ground as they ran down the stairs. They are grinning as they dash in the direction of the SUV and stand in front of Joy. Joy said, "Hello," to the group of teenagers in front of her. With a faint smile, she introduced herself and said, "I am Joy, and I am glad to meet each and every one of you." Together, the group of teenagers said, "Hi Joy." Izuku took a step away from his family members and friends who were standing behind him. He smiles broadly and says, "I am Izuku. It is a pleasure to meet you Joy. I know in time you will learn all our names and hopefully we do not get in your way or upset you while we each get to know you." Joy smiled back at him as she stood in front of him. She thought to herself, he is a beaming little ray of sunshine. As she looked over each teen with her sunglasses on, she assured him, "Do not worry. I am sure I will enjoy getting to know each and every one of you." Izuku bowed to her and said, "Thank you." She was aware, however, that Izuku's gaze had passed over her, looking at her intently, a look that conveyed to her that he was observing her and would return at some point to see if he had figured out what he believed to be her peculiarity. She merely chuckled quietly to herself, because nobody had ever done it correctly. Joy clapped her hands together and said, "Well, everyone. If you would get in, we can leave for Stark Tower." A group of teenagers load into the SUV while chatting and agreeing. Izuku peeks out the SUV's sunroof and looks at Katsuki, who is walking with his parents to their vehicles. He yells, "Hey Katsuki!" at the explosive teenager. He looks up at Izuku's protrusion from the sunroof. He calls back to the greenette, "What? Come and join us." Izuku asks him to accompany them in their car. Glancing back at his mom, his mother's crimson eyes matched his own. With a gentle smile on her face, Mizuki looks up at her other son and says, "Go ahead Kat." Katsuki gave her a quick hug and said, "Thanks Mom." Since his mother is still a beautiful woman and things could get worse, he knew he needed to give her a chance and stop calling her, "old hag." Because she might like Inko. He pulls away from his mother, breaking their embrace, turns his back on her, and runs in the direction of Izuku. I'm happy that he's taking the proper action to mend his friendship with his brother in all but blood. Izuku smiles at his friend as he slips back into the truck. He continued to smile as he said, I know, but we do need to bound." Katsuki enters through the still open door that Joy left open for the irascible teenager after Izuku has finished speaking. Joy says to Tony, "Sir, I shall take my leave." Tony looks at Yagi and says, "All right. We shall meet you back at the tower. Come on Yagi, I know you walked here." He addressed the man who was his grandson's real father. She smiled sheepishly at Tony. Yagi walked over to the older man's car and said, "Thank you Tony." Walking or taking the train, Aizawa shakes his head and gets into the car he borrowed from the school. He said to himself, this has become a longer day. After 15 to 20 minutes, Joy arrives at the exclusive subterranean parking garage, parking alongside other cars, trucks, and SUVs. Joy turned to each of them and said, "We have arrived." She said to them, "I'll take you up to Mr. Stark's private penthouse." A few seconds after exiting the SUV and making their way to the elevator, they noticed Tony and the others trailing behind. "Let's raise our heads." With a smile on her face, Joy told them, "They'll come after us." The penthouse. Elvira is baking cookies and other sweet treats in the penthouse's kitchen while wearing a black skin-tight dress and a blood-red apron that has half of the apron covered in flour from the excitement of her husband's phone call. A short while ago, Tony takes his phone out of his pocket again and taps the icon on the screen to scroll down to his beautiful wife's picture. He taps her picture multiple times as it starts to ring. Elvira, who had been baking and had already prepared dinner for herself and Tony, puts her phone on speaker and says, "Hello, love." "Hello, my love." As he heads down the road to his second home, Tony grins and tells her, "I have some great news for you." "What would that be?" Elvira asks in a light-hearted tone. Tony tells her, his smile growing, "Izuku is coming home to live with us as well as several of his friends." He knew she would go crazy over this. "Are you not making fun of me?" As she prepares to see her grandson for the second time in her life, Elvira asks her husband a question while letting out a high-pitched squeal of excitement. Tony tells her, "We will be there soon." "All right," Elvira tells her, grinning, "I love you." As he ends the call, Tony tells her, "Love you too." Returning to the present, when the elevator doors to the penthouse open, the group of teenagers rush inside. Joy calmly said to them, "No, running please." They all say, "Sorry." When Elvira hears voices coming from the living room, she pauses and smiles broadly. She wipes her hands covered in flour on her apron before turning on her heels and sprinting in the direction of the voices. Her face broke in two when she saw her grandson and the other teenagers. "Oh, Izu, my baby." Over the cacophony of boisterous teen conversation, Elvira shouts, while Joy looks on in amusement at what is about to happen. Every adolescent turns to face the shouting, long-haired, gothic-looking woman who is running toward the greenette. "Huh." As Izuku was drawn into the woman's arms and her long black hair swept toward him with shadows, that was the only response he could muster. As the scent of cinnamon and jasmine brought back memories of a woman he had met when he was incredibly young, Izuku flies into her arms and puts his arms around her. "Grandma." Tears fall down his cheeks as he asks in a low voice. As a small puddle forms at their feet, Katsuki sighs and says to Joy, "I hope they don't mind water damage." The woman was also crying, but strangely, her tears turned black, which caused Katsuki to raise an eyebrow. "Huh." As the elevator doors opened behind the teenagers, he remarked, "So, this is who he has gotten it from." When Tony notices the pool of normal and black tears spilling from the two people standing in the center of the living room, he sighs and calls out to the woman who was crying, "My love." With a genuine smile on her face, similar to the one she had when she first met her grandson, Izuku, Elvira snuffles and looks up at her husband with teary eyes. "I am so glad to have him back." "Wow, that's really lovely. How on earth can an elderly man like you get a girl?" Denki glances over at Tony and teases him. "I'm not sure. Inquire with her." Tony smiled fondly and told him, "Because she was the one who asked me out all those years ago." Izuku's arms are now flapping in the air as he tries to escape his grandmother, and Jiro remarks, "I think she is suffocating him." "Oh, Izu-chan," Elvira says, looking down in shock as she releases the boy as all eyes turn to the flaying boy. "I'm really sorry," she sobs, "I didn't mean to try and kill you," as more tears start to fall more quickly and forcefully. Izuku, gasping for breath, looks up at his grandmother and says, "I apologize." In between breaths, he tells her, "I didn't mean to worry you." Flashes were visible from behind them as Mizuki took pictures of the two on the floor. She cooed at them, "Aw, you two look so cute." She had a huge shit-eating grin on her face as she snapped a picture of them with shocked expressions. As Mizuki teases them, they get off pink dusting their cheeks. "Auntie," Izuku complains about her antics. Tony simply laughs at everything that occurs because he is glad to have some pictures from their first encounter in a long time. Having her baby Izuku back in her life brings Elvira relief. Because of what she did to her only child, her daughter was a terrible person. "Well, who's hungry?" she asks, her smile evoking memories of Izuku. Toga and Dabi raise their hands while the others smile sheepishly. Izuku gives her a sheepish smile and says, "Dabi and Toga haven't eaten yet. But we are still a little hungry. But we will help cook if you wish." Elvira smiles and says, "Don't worry, I shall whip up some more food for you kids." She returns to the kitchen and places a muffin basket on the counter. As she watches the children run to her, she says, "Everyone can snack on these until dinner is ready." They each grabbed a different muffin flavor. Skip in time. Izuku and his crew had been invading Stark Tower for a month. Izuku also started training with his father and studying under Nezu, with either Aizawa or Tony keeping watch over them. With a slight smile, Aizawa tells the boy, "Izuku, we need to find a workout that suits you because your body isn't built like your father's. You are built like a runner." Izuku collapses to the ground, his face dripping with perspiration. He was working with weights that were resting heavily on the rack. "I know, but I do know I need to build my upper body as well as my lower body straight. For if I don't, I will be lacking somewhere and it could mean defeat or winning the fight." He grumbles to his prospective instructor. As he hands him the paper, Aizawa says, "I do understand. That is why I am here to speak with you. Here I have it written down for you. The following is an example of a 4-day lean muscle, cardio workout. Monday. Abs, triceps, and chest. Legs on Tuesday. Wednesday. Take it easy. Thursday. Abs and shoulders. Friday. Biceps and back. Saturday. Take it easy. Sunday. Take it easy." Izuku takes the paper and looks at it for a while before turning back to his sensei. He asks, "Are you sure this will work for me?" Because he is unsure. "Yes, I do believe this would work best for your body type. I know Yagi's quirk is straight-based and it will rack havoc upon your body. With broken bones to the point you might not be able to walk. That is why I want you to focus more on training your body right. Not doing something foolish as breaking your arms in the entrance exams in 1 year." Aizawa tells him with a scowl that Yagi gave him. Flashback. Yagi tells his son, holding multiple papers and grinning foolishly, "Izuku, my son. I have a workout plan for you." Izuku examines it. "All-American workout plan to success. Dad, sir. I don't know if this would work for my body type." He gestures to his father, sounding slightly uncertain. Yagi smiles and puts his right hand on his son's shoulder, saying, "Nonsense, my boy. I am sure this will work for you. It was a workout plan I had done myself under my own senseis." "Well, if you're certain about this. The successful All-American workout plan. Summary of workout. Principal objective. Gain muscle. Type of workout. Divide. Level of training. More sophisticated. Program length. 12 weeks. Days of the week. 5. Duration of exercise. 45 to 60 minutes. Equipment needed. Exercise balls, barbells, bodyweight, cables, dumbbells, and machines. Exercise routine. Monday. Abs and shoulders. Arms and abs Tuesday. Legs and abs Wednesday. Thursday. Abs and back. Friday. Abs and chest. Saturday. Take it easy. Sunday. Take it easy. 5-day advanced exercise program for bodybuilders. Monday. Abs and shoulders. Workout sets and reps. Press of the military 4-8-1-0. Front barbell raise 3 to 10. Rows 4 to 8 upright. Lateral dumbbell raise 4 to 8. Reverse fly dumbbell 3 to 10. Refuse sit-ups 3 maximum. Remarks. Upright rows can be superadded with dumbbell lateral raises. If bodyweight isn't difficult enough for decline sit-ups, place a weight plate on your chest. Arms and abs Tuesday. Workout sets and reps. Barbell curl 4 to 8 standing. Preacher curls 4 to 8. Curl 4 to 8 cable. Bench press close grip 4-6. Dip 310 plus triceps max. Extension of the lying triceps skull crusher 4-8-1-0. Wrist curl 3 to 10 barbell. Leg raise with hanging 3 max. Legs and abs Wednesday. Workout sets and reps. Squat 5 to 7. Leg press at 45 degrees 4 to 10. Extension of the legs the 8th of April 10. Leg curl 4-8 to 10. Calf raise 4-1-2-1-5 while seated. Calf press at 45 degrees, the 10th of April 12. Hover 3 for as long as you can. Remarks. Seated calf raise. To increase the intensity, perform 15 bodyweight standing calf raises right after. Thursday. Abs and back. Workout sets and reps. 5-8-1-0 wide grip pull up. Pull down lat 4 to 10. Seated in rows 4 and 10. Row 3 to 8. 1 arm dumbbell. Abdominal decline reach 3 max. Remarks. To increase intensity, seated rows can be superadded with lat pull-downs. Friday. Abs and chest. Workout sets and reps. Bench press barbell the 6th of May 10. Bench press on an incline 4 to 8. Dip of the chest 4-8. Flies 4-1-0-1-2 dumbbell. Ball crunch exercise 3 to 20. Remarks. Incline dumbbell flies can make a barbell bench incredible. Dumbbell flies. Depending on the area of the chest you wish to target, you can perform these exercises on an incline or flat bench. Yes, I did research this because I've always been curious about the all-American dream plan. Izuku assures him, I'll do my best. He then makes his way to his grandfather's private gym to start working out. Flashbacks end. I received good things from my dad. It was more for a bodybuilder, though. Izuku remarked with a small laugh, it even mentioned being a bodybuilder. Aizawa sighed and rolled his eyes, saying dryly, it would have something like that on it. The other Shadow Unit members were working out today, and the girls were practicing gymnastics while the boys stretched with them. Hey Izu, will you be joining us? Denki asks, turning to face his friend. Yes, I'll be there shortly. I recently started a new exercise regimen. Izuku smiled at his friend and told Denki, that I'll be in a moment. All right, we're having a gymnastic day today, Denki continued, returning to helping Kirishima stretch. Would my old workout work for Kirishima as his quirk would work well for a bodybuilder? He asks, pausing and turning back to his sensei. He asks the man a question. He starts to think as he moves his right hand beneath his chin and looks at the boy with the bright red hair. You are correct, he says. Looking at the boy performing the splits, he continues, I think that would work, maybe some boxing would do him well as well. How about he picks up Bojuka? Izuku looks up at the man beside him and asks Aizawa a question. He looks down at the boy beside him and raises an eyebrow. Bojuka, he added as an afterthought, wondering if he knows anyone who knows the fighting style. But we do need to find someone to teach him the fighting style. Aizawa smiled and said, It could work as it is a mix of fighting styles with boxing. Izuku laughs quietly and smiles sheepishly as he tells Aizawa, I know the style as I have been studying it for years. Have you tried teaching him the style before? Aizawa asks, merely glancing at the boy. He asks the boy beside him. Well, these are the styles he is currently familiar with. Ya-yan, Wado Ryu Karate, Ninjutsu, and Gymnastics. Karate is one of Bojuka's styles, and as I mentioned, he is familiar with Wado Ryu Karate. Therefore, I don't think learning boxing, jujitsu, and karate would be difficult for him. He tells his sensei that he is also a quick learner. It will be more work for him, but he doesn't have a class right now because they didn't earn the right to be heroes because they thought they had the strongest quirks. I am able to teach him boxing and karate, Aizawa said, watching the boy stretch with a sigh. As he hurried off to work out with his friends, Izuku smiled and said, I need to get to stretching. After a month, Mei and Izuku are in Tony's workshop. Izuku is standing beside Mei and says, I think building me my suit will aid us on making our own Gundam. He is grinning broadly. That will be awesome, Mei says, her eyes widening with her own enormous smile. She tells him, I miss our baby a lot. Our baby has been brought here by Grandpa. As he watches his girlfriend jump up and down with excitement, Izuku remarked, he is currently looking over our wiring for half the Gundam head we had built. All right, take me to our baby, Mei commands, her excitement evident. Tony's lab. As he assessed the lights from the eyes turning on, Tony sat in front of half of the Gundam head, half of which had the eyes and strange mouth Mei had added. They have done pretty good with what they had been building it from. Hey Grandpa, he says as the door behind him opens. Izuku shouts to his grandfather, Mei wanted to see her baby on whom you were working. It's okay. However, you two must wait until I've finished reviewing your work, Tony instructed the two teenagers. Looking at the Iron Hero, Mei sulks and whimpers, but I want to spend some time with my Gundam baby. Yes, Mei, I understand. However, I don't want anything in my labs to blow up. Tony turned to face his grandson and the pouting girl in front of him, saying, as a result of your explosions, I had to replace 3 dummies. Izuku frowns and says, we understand Grandpa and we are sorry for what had happened. Don't worry, Tony says, waving him away. I am aware that trying something new can result in explosions. Mei and Izuku blushed at the reprimand, but he told them, but we need to cut back upon them before I am rebuilding this tower. I have no doubt that your father would like to work with you for some time. Perhaps even come up with new moves to employ with your newly acquired power. Knowing that Mei enjoys seeing him play in his own iron suit, Tony tells his grandson, maybe work with them within the iron suit we built for you. Mei's eyes brighten. Please, could we? As she bounced on the balls of her feet, she asked him. As they left the lab, Izuku said to her, Yes, after that we are going to work on target practice as I might need you in a job in a week. Tony only heard the last part. Who the hell am I kidding? That boy is going to kill me. They all will be the death of me. Tony complained to himself because they had been treating him badly ever since they moved in, and Izuku was using some of the money he was permitted to use to purchase buildings for shelters, rackets, and even schools for the children in the area of town where he grew up. Izuku also planned to move to other impoverished areas of towns to give children a chance, and the boy was going to establish quick centers where children could learn to use their quirks and receive assistance in their development. The private training gym of Yagi. Tony has a juice bar in each of his private gyms, and Yagi is sitting there sipping a protein shake that Elvira just brought him. How is Izu's training going, then? The man sitting in front of her is questioned by Elvira. Yes, my son is doing well, I said. Considering his training, only last night was he able to acquire my power. Until he wanted to, I hadn't wanted to tell anyone. However, this is just between us, and I'm sure he'll say something tonight. Yagi says to the woman who would have been his mother-in-law, I do hope. He will, I'm positive. The man blushed where he sat as Elvira winked and said, because if it's necessary, I'll get it out of him. Izuku followed Mei into his father's private gym and said, Hey Dad, Grandma. Mei says to the two heroes in the gym, Hi Izu's might dad and Gothic Grammy. Hi, Mei-chan. Before Yagi can say anything, Elvira says, Izu baby. Mei, what have you been up to that you're here with Izu? She asks the Pinkett a question. She smiles brightly and blushes a little. I wanted to work on my Gundam baby, she says. But we couldn't because of IRN Gramps. She told them, grinning wildly, he wants to check over my wiring because I took out 3 dummies and he likes his dummies. The girl's enthusiasm makes Yagi laugh. I'm sure he's not too upset, she says. He laughed at the 2 teenagers and said, but it might be best to let him check over your work, you two. What has brought you two here, then? Elvira asks, grinning as she looks at them. Grandpa told us to come here and work with Dad as well as getting used to wearing my iron suit while using my quirk. Izuku replied with a grin. Mei chirped with a crazy smile, I would like to see that myself. The room of Shoto. Kirishima is seated across from Shoto in his bedroom. So, have you discovered the source of trigger? He asks the stone-faced adolescent sitting across from him. No, not just yet. All of the dealers of khat have been silent, even when I ask questions with Hitoshi's assistance. Kiri frowns and tells him, it's like their minds were wiped after receiving the drug. As he collapses back onto his bed, Shoto sighs and keeps his gaze fixed on the boy in the shark onesie as he speaks to his brother, saying, Don't worry about it, Kiri. Soon, we will know. He smiled slightly and tried to reassure his brother, saying, nothing stays silent. With a shark-tooth grin, Kiri tells him, yeah, I'm not worried about it man. Izuku and the others wanted to try to see if they could get into their respective fields within UA, even though Nezu had already taken them all as private students. Today is the day of the entrance exam. Denki smiles broadly and exclaims, this is going to be fun. Eijiro concurred with his electric friend, saying, yeah, man, this is going to be so manly. Several children tripped and fell on a protruding step as they entered. Wow, UA, that was cool, Denki commented, looking back at the other as they simply nodded their heads in agreement, as they watched a brown-haired girl float and spin in a circle before landing back on her feet. Needs to fix that step. All right, Iron. Mei kisses Izuku on the cheek and says, I need to head to support. The brown-haired girl who tripped notices this because she was facing them when she regained her balance. All right, Izuku kisses her own cheek and says, I'll see you after the exam, Mei. Power Loader will be cursing Nezu until Mei graduates from UA, so Mei fled down a different hallway. The auditorium. Slips of paper bearing their names were taken by Izuku, Katsuki, Eijiro, Jiro, Shinso, Denki, Shoto, and Minoru. Katsuki tells the Greenette, glancing at Izuku's paper, it appears we are seating next to each other. As Denki, Shoto, Minoru, Shinso, and Jiro found their spots around the auditorium, Eijiro sat down beside Izuku, who agrees, saying, it appears so. With big screens above, the present mic said, Good morning, UA hopefuls. Please give me a yes. Yes, indeed, originated with the Shadow Crew and even shocked Katsuki. The spite there is amazing. Present Mike exclaimed with delight that the 8 individuals had complied with his request. All right, listeners. Hi, This is the entrance exam today. Here are the rules of the exam, said Present Mike. Izuku was lost in thought until Present Mike was interrupted by a boy with blue hair. As you can see, there are 4 robots on the pamphlets that were provided to you and us. While Present Mike had been speaking, he pivoted on his heel to gesture toward Izuku, who was working with Mei on a sketchbook, creating the plans for his upcoming project. Why are you here wasting everyone's time if you won't be listening? The boy with the blue hair yelled. I'm paying attention. However, if you would listen to yourself and stop talking. Izuku looked up from his blueprint and said, Present Mike would have explained the 4th bot moron. Eijiro and Katsuki both chuckle at the Greenette's antics. Present Mike grinned and said, that would be enough. Candidate number 4,525,479 please have a seat, and well-spoken candidate number 3,264,655. Observed shift. All right, candidates, please board the buses to the locations of the testing sites where you will be taking the final exam. There are 8 buses parked outside the auditorium. Excitedly, Present Mike exclaimed. Izuku got on bus 8 and groaned as he saw the boy with the blue hair. This is going to be annoying, he thought to himself as he placed his duff bag next to his seat. He had to put on his bracers, which he had previously been approved to wear for the last portion of the test. Before testing ground 8, the bus stopped, and Izuku took his time getting off, leaving his hoodie on his seat where the bus driver had instructed him to do so he wouldn't tear or blow up the sleeves again. Present Mike cheered over the PA system over each exam zone as the testing ground doors opened. All right people, the final part of the exam will be beginning in just a moment. Just remember to do your best. When Izuku saw the doors opening, he grinned and ran in their direction. In real life, nobody will tell you to leave. When the others finally understood and fled into the testing ground, Present Mike yelled. Prior to other robots entering the testing grounds, Izuku had already scored 21 points by using the lasers in his bracers to defeat 10 of them. 5 of them were 2-pointers, 3 were 3-pointers, and 2 were 1-pointers. After 30 minutes had passed and Izuku had rescued students from falling structures and other robots that were attacking them from behind, the world started to tremble, and the 0-pointer, the biggest and most useless robot, entered the battle. When children heard and saw the robot monster, they fled to protect themselves, regardless of whether they bumped into or ran over other pupils in the process. I need help, please. A girl shouted from beneath a section of wall. Izuku sees a girl in the 0-pointer's path and turns his head in the direction of where he heard a girl's voice pleading for assistance. Izuku yelled, shit, and started running in the direction of where the girl was restrained. Are you able to move? Izuku asks the girl with the brown hair. The girl tells him, no. I think my leg is broken. Izuku looks up at the monster that towers over them and utters another curse, shit. I have no other choice. He pushed the slab off the girl without thinking twice, then turned and stomped his boot heels on the floor as bracers started to emerge from his boots and he leapt. His boots change into rocket boots as he leaps into the air. He soars toward the 0-pointer's head. He pulled his right hand back. I'm calling you back, smash, as he strikes the 0-pointer in the face, falling backwards, crushing it into pieces, hitting a number of buildings behind it. Booth of observation. Tony and Yagi gaped at what Izuku had just done. Well, let's just hope he didn't break anything. As he started to stand up, Tony said, Yagi is standing up as well. For such a punch, we must see how he is doing. His voice was worried as he spoke. Izuku is back. His left hand was gripping his right wrist. He was glad he had his bracer on because it prevented him from breaking it. He lowers himself back to the ground using the thruster on his rocket boots. Now, the girl he assisted is lying on the section of wall she was wedged beneath. Are you okay? She appears to be a pale shade of green when he asks. No. As she turns to throw up a rainbow, she responds. She is suspended halfway from the slab. Izuku simply gives the girl a headshake. She didn't get crushes to death, at least. Gazing down at his right wrist, he pondered. At least I didn't break it. He grinned at this tiny victory and said to himself. Convalescence. A girl approaches the two. Are you two okay? She questioned them. She kept a close eye on both of them. The girl sat up slowly. Yes, I'm all right. I simply went too far with my quirk. However, I believe he may have suffered a wrist fracture. The elderly heroine is informed by the girl. Come on, boy, permit me to look at your wrist. The recovery girl tells him, grinning like a grandmother. He nodded while allowing her to grasp his right arm and examine his right wrist. You didn't break it, dearie. Dearie, you just sprained your wrist. She kissed his wrist and told him, grinning like a grandmother. There you have it, have some gummies and feel better. She turned to the girl and gave him a small bag of gummies. Here are some gummies for your stomach. She tells the girl, who smiles and bows to her while battling an upset stomach. The girl is being watched by Recovery Girl. Izuku moved out of sight. To find out how they performed on their respective exam sections, he had to locate his friends and family. He located his seat and put his hoodie back on as he made his way back to the bus. He collapses back into his chair. I'm ready to head home. Relieved that it was over, he said. Space for meetings. As they saw Tony and Yagi approaching them, Katsuki, Denki, Eijiro, Jiro, Shoto, Minoru, and Mei stood together waiting for Izuku to join them. How did you seven do? Tony is asked as he looks at the 7 people in front of him. Katsuki smiled arrogantly at him. I dominated my section of the exam. With his fist resting on his hips, he told them. I think I did fairly well. With a shark-toothed grin, Eijiro informed them. Jiro, Minoru, and Denki exchanged glances. We teamed up and did the best we could. Together, they said. I froze them all, Shoto told them while maintaining a vacant expression. Mei gleefully giggled. I blow them all out of the water with my baby. Bouncing around them, she said. I can't wait to build more babies next year. She smiled dazzlingly as she told them. Izuku heard Mei's excitement about her upcoming babies as he approached this scene. He laughs to himself. It is Mei's responsibility to look forward and never look back. He sees his son approaching from the left out of the corner of his eye. He sees his son approaching. My boy, Izuku, how are you feeling? His electric blue eyes slide down to the boy's right wrist as he asks. I'm doing fine. Recovery Girl had previously fixed my sprained wrist. Izuku told his father as he showed his grandfather and father his now healed wrist, causing them to exhale with relief that they had been suppressing. How did you do, Iron? Mei asks him as she leaps toward him, putting her arms around his neck and hanging off his back while grinning broadly at him. I believe I performed fairly well. As it was about to run a girl over, I also pulled out a 0-pointer. He told them all. Wow, you took out a 0-pointer? Asks Denki, his face displaying a look of shock. Izuku simply nods his head slowly. In the observation booth, we watched it. We were afraid it might have flown into another testing area, but it didn't make it that far after he sent it flying. Their eyes widened as they gazed at the greenette in front of them as Tony spoke. Izuku has the grace to appear ashamed of what he did. Yes, I may have removed it. But if my bracer hadn't been on, I believe my wrist would have been broken. He looks down at his right wrist and tells them. Come on, children, let's head home. Tony wanted to go home, so he told them. Yagi was gradually becoming ill, and he had no say in the voting. Another treatment was required of him. Everyone was already exhausted and hungry, so they nodded in agreement. I'm starving. Eijiro sighed, his stomach rumbling with excitement. Everyone simply laughs at the boy's antics because he occasionally gets hungry from using his quick. Thus, he occasionally needs to carry energy bars. The Stark Tower. The children rush to their rooms for private showers and baths as Tony, who has his own chef, prepares meals for the children. He hired a chef because he didn't want his wife, who is still a heroine in her own right, to overwork herself and because he wanted her to come home and unwind after battling crime. Every child exits their respective bedrooms one by one. Even Katsuki has a room in Stark Tower. Dinner will be ready soon. While they were all grabbing cookies that Elvira had prepared that morning, Tony informed the children. Skip in time. The exception letters for everyone who had successfully entered the UA were distributed that afternoon. Sitting in the living room, Izuku gazed at the heavy envelope. He opened the letter slowly, allowing the metal disc to drop out. All Might appears inside the halogram as it fires up. My boy, Izuku Toshinori Stark, you've made it to the UA. My alma mater, I'm excited to see you this year. This coming year, I will be your heroics teacher. Welcome to the United States of America. With an enormous grin on his face, All Might told him. As he watched his father hammer it up on the halogram, Izuku simply laughed. From everyone's bedroom, he heard shouts and screams, informing him that they had also arrived in UA. He reads the letter after picking it up. I will therefore be in Class 1A. Well, Mr. Aizawa will be my sensei. He simply grinned to himself as he said this. On the first day of school, Izuku walked over to his bedroom door, where his backpack was lying next to it, and glanced around his room. He sighed, listening to the commotion around him. Here we go. Knowing that they would take over UA within the first week with the new 9th graders, he grinned broadly. Since this was the first year of UA's flagship middle school program. He stopped by the door, his floor a golden stripe in the early morning light. He could hear his friends' faint clamor coming down the hallway, laughs, nervous murmurs, and the distinct throb of excitement that always accompanies a fresh start. Izuku squared his shoulders, nervous and excited at the same time. Tracing the All Might keychain hanging from the zipper with his fingers, he picked up his backpack. No turning back now, he whispered, his eyes glimmering with resolve. It was the start of something greater than a typical first day. This new flagship middle school program promised challenges no one had ever faced before, and UA was more than just a school, it was a testing ground. The familiar faces of his friends, some of whom were old, greeted him as he entered the hallway. They were all filled with equal amounts of hope and fear. "Good morning," Izuku chirped in a lively and contagious voice. All of the heads in the living room turned at once, and they all grinned as brightly as he did. "Morning, Iron," May exclaimed as she bounded over with her usual vigor. She jumped onto Izuku's back before he could prepare himself, her arms effortlessly encircling his neck. As she looked over his shoulder and gave him a quick peck on the cheek, he laughed and steadied her. Her eyes glistened with anticipation as she asked, "Are you ready for our first day of school?" Izuku smiled, the trepidation in his chest melting into warmth as he looked around at everyone. Friends relaxing on the couch, others huddled in the kitchen, eating pastries and his grandmother's homemade breakfast before leaving. Laughter blended with the sound of dishes clinking and the soft murmur of conversation as the air hummed with the promise of fresh starts. He answered, "Yes, I'm ready," feeling the conviction in his own words. He looked around the room, drawing strength from the faces he knew. They would venture into the unknown together today. Together, resolute, and full of hope for the future, they would confront whatever lay ahead at UA. Izuku's remarks cut through the morning chit-chat and caused his friends to start moving wildly. As the group started to assemble close to the door, backpacks were slung over shoulders, shoes were hurriedly laced, and last morsels of breakfast were gobbled up. Nerves, excitement, and the shared thrill of embarking together were all evident in the air. At that moment, Tony walked into the living room with a magnetic presence and eyes full of approval as he looked around at the small group of excited students. In a commanding and uplifting gesture, he clapped his hands, making a clear sound that cut through the din of conversation. "Good, you're already ready," he said, his trademark smile widening as he absorbed the scene. A group of teenagers, all full of excitement, on the eve of their first day at UA. "I just came to make sure everyone was ready." Tony's words gave Izuku a wave of comfort. It was comforting to know that someone with experience and confidence had faith in them. With a playful hop, May slid off Izuku's back, landing lightly and mockingly solemnly saluting Tony. Tony gestured toward the hallway while the others laughed and gathered their belongings. "All right, heroes in training," he declared, "let's go to the garage. You don't want to be late for your first day, and the convoy is waiting." Footsteps reverberated down the hallway as the group filed out, laughing and saying a few final goodbyes to the comfortable corners of their house. With the prospect of adventure ahead burning brighter than ever, Izuku inhaled deeply. They would enter UA today as a team, not just as students, eager to see what lay ahead. In the meantime, there was a different kind of anticipation in the UA hallways as Izuku and his friends headed to the garage. With his tail flicking behind him, Nezu, the exuberant principal, practically vibrated with excitement as he scampered through the administrative wing. He was fully aware that the day would mark the official start of his most audacious venture to date, the first ever middle school pilot program at UA. Nezu's thoughts skimmed over the specifics, remembering the discussion with Aizawa from the previous evening. It had been one of those memorable conversations that lasted until the break of dawn. Rewind. Nezu's office was illuminated by city lights coming in through frosted windows, and the evening air was heavy with the smell of old tea and paperwork. With wild hair and sharp eyes, Aizawa slouched in a worn-out chair, his expression vacillating between skepticism and resignation. Nezu had chirped, "Aizawa, I want you to take charge of the incoming pilot class," in a confident and mischievous tone. "I need you to concentrate on the new, younger students because you will be failing your hero class in the 10th grade tomorrow morning. They'll require a capable homeroom teacher, and you're the best candidate." Aizawa had furrowed her brow and looked at the principal with a weary expression. Why, for my other class, I have plans. Work needs to be done. Nezu's smile grew as her ears twitched. The other teachers will continue to rotate in as normal, and you will still have your planning hour. However, I want you to serve as their primary mentor and homeroom anchor. After all, these pupils are our future. Despite the length of his sigh, Aizawa's eyes glowed with an implicit acceptance of the challenge. The flashback has ended. Nezu hurried down the hallway back in the present, excited to start using his new program. More than a trial, the pilot class was a promise, an opportunity to develop heroes at a much younger age and mold tomorrow's guardians before the world had a chance to stifle their optimism. And with Aizawa leading the charge, Nezu was sure his vision would succeed despite its peculiarities. Even though the day had just begun, there was already a buzz of opportunity everywhere in UA. Nezu's laughter reverberated from the office as Izuku and his friends emerged into the sunlight, blending in perfectly with the chorus of voices that were rising to welcome a new era.
This was it for the series. I hope you enjoyed it. To watch more series like this, subscribe to my channel. Till then, bye bye.